Chapter 795. Zhuozhou. This name was taboo in the Blood Beast sect. This person was also a legendary figure, because he was the previous sect leader of the Blood Beast sect, and also Situ Huanqiu's master. However, this previous sect leader had actually done something extremely crazy. Something that had once caused the Blood Beast sect to lose all face. That was, Zhuozhou had betrayed the sect. A sect leader had betrayed his own sect. This was one of the top sects in the world, one of the top 7 sects in the world. When this matter came out, the Blood Beast sect really became the joke of the world. The reason why Zhuozhou betrayed the sect was that he secretly took a large number of blood beasts for himself, and secretly stole a part of the power of the venerable beast to enhance his own cultivation. After this incident, the entire sect became enemies. In the end, Zhuozhou was besieged and killed by a large number of experts of the Blood Beast sect. But now, the power of the venerable beast had been mobilized. Other than Situ Huanqiu, there was only Zhuozhou. Could it be that Zhuozhou was really not dead? But there were very few people who had participated in the pursuit of Zhuozhou back then who were still alive. Situ Huanqiu frowned and said, "Recently, some of our disciples have been inexplicably assassinated. This matter is troublesome enough. Now that the venerable beast has been alarmed, it's an eventful time. Go invite the elders in the ancestral hall. We must ask them about what happened back then. Also, summon all the formation masters in the sect to use the power of the venerable beast to find the location of that person." Yes. On the other side, in the underworld, Leng Shiqi was surrounded by a large amount of black gas. Threads of black gas entered his body through his pores, and were repairing his meridians and body at an astonishing speed. After about a quarter of an hour, Leng Shiqi opened his eyes and moved his hands and feet. He was finally able to move freely. His injuries would not be healed in a short time, and his spiritual power had not recovered much, but at least he could move. With a thought, Leng Shiqi found Mr. Zhou among the thousands of souls in the underworld. This time, the change in the demonic miasma mountain range could be said to have been planned by Mr. Zhou. Although Mr. Zhou was now dead, Leng Shiqi still did not know Mr. Zhou's true purpose and intentions. If it was in the past, Leng Shiqi would find it a little troublesome, but it was different now. He pointed his finger, and the glabella of Mr. Zhou's soul lit up, as if it had gained a sliver of consciousness. However, its eyes still looked so empty. "Who are you?" Leng Shiqi asked. Mr. Zhou's soul said stiffly, "Zhuozhou." Leng Shiqi smirked. Mr. Zhou was dead, but his soul was in his hands. He could play with it as he pleased. The Leng Shiqi could even directly extract Mr. Zhou's memories, but in that case, the soul would be destroyed on the spot. That was the soul of a Sky Origin stage cultivator. Maybe there were more to use. He couldn't do that to La Fight. When Leng Shiqi heard that Mr. Zhou's real name was Zhuozhou, he was not too surprised. It was just an alias, and he often used it. He continued, "Tell me your true identity." "I am the previous sect leader of the Blood Beast sect. I am currently the head of the Imperial Hall of Worship in the Northern Wei Empire." Zhuozhou's words immediately caused Leng Shiqi's heart to tremble. This person really didn't stop until he was shocked to death. Even Leng Shiqi was shocked. He had once guessed from the conversation between the two demons and Zhuozhou that the other party was from the Blood Beast sect. Perhaps he was also related to the Northern Wei Empire. However, he never thought that Zhuozhou was actually the previous sect leader of the Blood Beast sect, and also the head of the Imperial Hall of Worship in the Northern Wei Empire. Any one of these two identities was enough to shake a region. However, Leng Shiqi thought about it again. The conflict between the Empire and the Spirit Cultivator sect was not unique to the Thunder Flame Empire, but the same problem faced by all 3 empires. As the former sect leader of the Blood Beast sect, how could Zhuozhou enter the Imperial Hall of Worship in the Northern Wei Empire? There must be a secret that cannot be revealed. Tell me everything you have experienced. Also, what is your real purpose in coming to the Demon Miasma Mountain Range? Leng Shiqi asked the answer he wanted to know the most. Next, Zhuozhou dryly explained how he used the Blood Beast sect's Beast Venerable to increase his strength, and the process of betraying the sect. In fact, when he decided to betray the sect, he had already reached a consensus with the Northern Wei Empire. Zhuozhou used his strength at the peak of the Sky Origin stage, as capital to get the Northern Wei Empire to help him escape the pursuit of the Blood Beast sect. In this way, Zhuozhou obtained the power he wanted, and the Northern Wei Empire secretly obtained such an expert. It could be considered a win-win situation. The main reason why Zhuozhou decided to betray the sect was not simply to increase his strength, but to find another way to refine the blood beasts. That was the blood beast altar. This method required the sacrifice of a large number of blood beasts, but it could be exchanged for a rank 7 great demon. This was definitely a profitable transaction. But he knew that the upper echelons of the blood beast sect were more old-fashioned than the other. They would definitely not agree with his method. Thus, Zhuozhou, who was almost crazy in his heart, decided to betray the sect. The reason why he came to the Demon Miasma mountain range was for 2 reasons. One was to find a place to test the blood beast altar that he had researched. In the Falling Star continent, other than the extreme north wasteland, only the Demon Miasma mountain range had a large number of demonic beasts. There were many blood beast sect disciples in the extreme north wasteland, so Zhuozhou could only choose to come to the Demon Miasma mountain range. As for the second reason, it was because the Northern Wei Empire had secretly interfered. Originally, the Northern Wei Empire thought that there would be some turmoil when the Thunderfire Empire's imperial power changed. However, after Lei Haoyan ascended the throne, he only used the first Spirit Cultivator Assembly to stabilize the Thunderfire Empire. He even caused the Spirit Cultivator sects in the territory to fight for themselves. The Northern Wei Empire could not sit still. Taking advantage of the fact that Zhuozhou was about to come to the Demon Miasma mountain range, they let him use the demonic beasts here to wantonly cause destruction. In short, the greater the shock and destruction, the better. It would be best if he could kill a few Sky Origin stage experts of the Thunderfire Empire. So that's how it is. It's really a wishful thinking. Leng Shiqi muttered. After understanding Zhuozhou's goal and all of his goals, Leng Shiqi turned him into a ghost slave. A peak Sky Origin stage expert turned into a ghost slave, directly possessing the strength of a peak unity of heaven and man realm expert. This was definitely one of his greatest battle prowess. Leng Shiqi gave him a name, Beast Ghost. At this time, Leng Shiqi thought that since he had killed Zhuozhou, then one of the conditions for Underworld's upgrade had been fulfilled. He looked at Underworld's information. Underworld territory current level, rank 5. Underworld territory upgrade requirements. 1. Recruit 2 Yama Kings of the 10 Halls, 2/3. 2. Collect a top-notch soul, 1/3. 3. 160,000 system coins. Next, he just needed to think of a way to recruit 2 talented and high cultivation members of Underworld, and he would be able to upgrade again. However, Leng Shiqi did not have anyone he was particularly confident in, so he could only take one step at a time. At this time, Ghost Chi suddenly gathered in Underworld, and the figure of a Ghost Emperor appeared. It was Yuanyang Mingyu Ghost Emperor's avatar. Chapter 796. Seeing Delta Origi's Dharma form, Leng Shiqi slapped his head. He actually forgot to inform Delta Origi. The reason why he took away Zhuozhou's body when he entered the Mansion of the Dead was because he didn't want Old Han and the others to know that Mr. Zhou was dead. This was a powerhouse at the peak of Sky Origin stage, but he died at the hands of Leng Shiqi. Even if he had 100 mouths, he wouldn't be able to explain it. Otherwise, he would definitely expose himself. It was better to leave a mystery for them to guess blindly. He would appear in another place and pretend that he didn't know anything. Then, he would find out Zhuozhou's plot from the clues, and take out Zhuozhou's body at the right time. It would also implicate the Northern Wei Empire. Not only would it be a great merit, it would also be a national merit. If Zhuozhou was only the previous sect leader of the Blood Beast sect, then the incident in the demonic Miasma mountain range was completely Zhuozhou's own doing. Even if Leng Shiqi killed him, it would be purely a merit. But once the Northern Wei Empire was involved, the nature of the matter would be completely different. This was a national enmity. With this merit, coupled with the operation of the Soul Doppelganger, it might be enough to achieve Leng Shiqi's goal. And no one would ever think that Zhuozhou actually died at the hands of Leng Shiqi. That was his plan. After entering the Mansion of the Dead, he first stabilized his injuries, and then interrogated Zhuozhou. He really forgot to tell Delta Origi. At this time, Delta Origi saw Lung Shiqi standing in front of her. She finally breathed a sigh of relief, but she immediately looked a little angry. Lung Shiqi touched his nose and said, "The two demons and Mr. Zhou had an internal conflict. I intervened and they all died." Died. They all died. Delta Origi was stunned when she heard Lung Shiqi's words. Those were two rank 7 demons, and a mysterious expert who was stronger than Old Han and the others. They died just like that. And they died at the hands of Lung Shiqi? Even though the Delta Origi had been through a lot, they still found it hard to accept. Delta Origi was a little confused as she asked, "Was the force that broke this space just now your doing?" Lung Shiqi did not hide it and nodded. Delta Origi's heart sank. She originally thought that the gap between her and Lung Shiqi was big enough, but now it seemed that they were no longer in the same world. Lung Shiqi changed the topic. "By the way, what's the situation outside?" The Scarlet Thunder Army and many spirit cultivators have already surrounded the participating demonic beasts. The few experts from the Imperial family's consecration hall are all watching from the outside. They thought that there were other experts here, and each of them was more nervous than the other. Delta Origi said. She felt that the old man and the others would never be able to guess that all of this was Lung Shiqi's doing. Thinking of those demon beasts, Lung Shiqi pondered. Up until now, the matter of the demon miasma mountain range had basically been resolved. The reason why it was was because there were still some demon beasts here. It was the demon beasts that Lung Shiqi had brought out of the encirclement. There were only a few of the strongest rank 6 demon beasts here, and they were all heavily injured. Lung Shiqi only needed to give the order to slaughter them all. However, he hesitated. First of all, he considered whether there was a need for the demon miasma mountain range to continue existing. After the battle in the demon suppressing town, more than 90% of the demon beasts here had died. If the remaining demon beasts were to reproduce and recover to their previous scale, it would take 100 years. Moreover, the remaining demon beasts wished to eat the humans alive. They might not even live on. Perhaps they would fight to the death and drag a few humans down with them before they died. However, if he were to kill them all, Lung Shiqi would not be able to bear it. Of course, he did not sympathize with those demon beasts, but he felt that they still had some value. Lung Shiqi thought of a possibility. Then he asked the Delta Origi to lure the old man and the others away so that he could leave the underworld. Immediately after, he rushed to the location of the participating demon beasts. At this time, the remaining demonic beasts were all hiding in a remote area within the demonic miasma mountain range. Most of the demonic beasts were trembling, because they already knew that a large number of Scarlet Thunder Army S and Spirit Cultivator S were approaching. Their doom was not far away. Especially the terrifying power that came from the center of the demon miasma mountain range not long ago. It made them tremble in fear. Most of the demon beasts here had yet to awaken their intelligence. They only had some instincts, and they were all crawling on the ground with their heads in their hands. Only a small number of high-level demon beasts could barely maintain their composure, but their eyes were filled with despair. At this time, Lung Shiqi appeared in the midst of the demon beasts in his half-demon form. Before he came, he had already seen the old man and the others and told them not to be in a hurry to kill these demon beasts. He had other uses for them. Xiechiyue. Where are the two demon ancestors? They knew that Lung Shiqi had followed the two demon ancestors. Now that he had returned, what about their demon ancestors? Lung Shiqi revealed a tragic expression and said, "The two demon ancestors. They have fallen." What? Impossible. The demon ancestors are great demons of the 7th step. How could they fall? The few rank 6 demon beasts were not willing to believe Lung Shiqi's words. They were not close to the two demon beasts, but with the two demon beasts dead, their last hope was destroyed. What awaited them was only death. Lung Shiqi shook his head and did not explain further. This is absolutely true. It was Mr. Zhou who did it, but the two demon ancestors killed him before they died. The most important thing now is to think about how to escape. Escape? All the demon beasts were silent. The demon miasma mountain range was already filled with spirit cultivators. The demon ancestors were already dead. As long as the spirit cultivators had a few sky origin stage cultivators, they could easily kill them all. Where else could they escape to? Seeing the despair of the demons, Lung Shiqi knew that the time had come. He said, "We still have a chance, but I don't know if you are willing." As soon as he said that, some of the high-level demon beasts looked at him. Their eyes flashed with human emotions. That was the desire to live. No human or demon would be willing to die. Not to mention a glimmer of hope. Even if there was only a glimmer of hope, they would still give it a try. Xiechiyue, what method do you have? No matter what it is, we are willing to try. Save me, I don't want to die. Including some demon beasts that had intelligence but could not speak, they were all wailing softly. Lung Shiqi smiled in his heart. This was what he wanted to see. You should also know that I'm a half-demon. I've actually grown up outside since I was young and have traveled to many places. I once obtained a small secret realm by chance. As long as I bring you into the secret realm, I will be able to sneak into the human race and escape. Chapter 797. Secret Realm. You actually have a secret realm. Quickly bring me in. Hearing about the secret realm, even if the demonic beasts had never left the demonic miasma mountain range, they knew that the secret realm was a separate space. As long as they escaped into the secret realm, they would not be caught by the spirit cultivators, and would be able to escape this calamity. Thus, all the demonic beasts became excited. For example, a spirit monkey with a broken arm said, "Xiechiyue, if we want to enter the secret realm, I'm afraid there are conditions." Of course. Lung Shiqi confirmed. First of all, this secret realm is a bit special. The environment inside is very harsh, so it might not be suitable for you to survive. Hearing this, the demonic beasts disagreed. Harsh environment? Was there anything worse than the demonic miasma mountain range? One had to know that these demonic beasts were not born immune to the miasma here. At first, they were like humans, unable to withstand the miasma. It was only after generations of reproduction that they slowly adapted to the environment here. It could also be said that those who did not adapt to the environment had all died. And the secret realm that Lung Shiqi was talking about was the underworld. The underworld was filled with netherworld chi, and these demonic beasts might not be able to adapt. Since the demonic beasts felt that it was nothing, he was too lazy to explain. He continued, "There is another condition. When you enter the secret realm, you will definitely consume a lot of energy. From this point of view, I will definitely suffer a huge loss. Furthermore, escaping from the demonic miasma mountain range is not that easy. It can be said that you are risking your life. Therefore, you must accept me as your master." As soon as he finished speaking, all the demonic beasts immediately fell silent. All the demonic beasts looked at the few rank 6 demonic beasts led by the spirit monkey. At this point, only they could make a decision. One of the green snakes secretly sent a sound transmission. "He wants us to recognize him as our master. What should we do?" "No, if you want us to recognize you as our master, you must be at the demonic beast clan level. Moreover, he is a mere half-demon. He was born underground and is definitely not qualified to be our master." "Humph. If you don't recognize me as your master, then you will die. I don't care if you have backbone, I am willing. If you want to die, you can die by yourself." A demonic beast with a broken arm had a different idea. As soon as it mentioned death, the other demonic beasts were speechless. Finally, that spirit monkey said, "All right, I think we should acknowledge him as our master first. At the very least, we can save our lives first. Don't forget that the only reason we're still here is because of Xiechiyue. Otherwise, we would have died in Yao Suppressing City. This Xiechiyue is very strong. In the future, it is not impossible for him to break through to the 7th level of the Great Yao Realm. It is not a disgrace to us. Brother Luho, I'll listen to you. If you say so." This spirit monkey, who was known as Land Monkey, seemed to have a very high status among the 6th-ranked demonic beasts. It made the decision as soon as it spoke. Luho brought a few 6th-order demonic beasts and came before Lung Shiqi. It bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, master." The remaining demonic beasts all knelt on the ground. Those who could speak naturally followed suit and shouted, "Greetings, master." Those who could not speak all let out a sound of submission. Very good. Lung Shiqi smiled. With so many demonic beasts under his command, his power had skyrocketed. With a wave of his hand, boundless netherworld chi rose behind him. A tall and gloomy gate of hell rose from the ground. Such a strange and gloomy aura spread out, causing the demonic beasts to feel a chill down their spines. They actually felt the aura of death rushing towards them. What the hell is this? What is in the secret realm? Why does it look so scary? It is not easy to live in a place like this. The demonic beasts' hearts were pounding, but none of them regretted it, because they had no way out. Go in. Lung Shiqi pointed at the gate of hell. This was also his first attempt. In the past, he had personally brought people into the underworld, and they had to be members of the underworld. After obtaining the gate of hell, he realized that the souls inside could directly come out. This meant that creatures from the outside world could also enter. Lung Shiqi watched as the land monkey carefully walked into the gate of hell. The moment it entered the gate of hell, this 6th-level demonic beast that was not weak actually shuddered. However, it still managed to successfully enter. Lung Shiqi's heart calmed down. Everyone, hurry up. The aura when I open the secret realm is too special. I am afraid that the humans will sense it. They will be here soon. If we are any slower, it will be too late even if we want to leave. Hearing this, the demonic beasts did not care about anything else and rushed into the underworld. There were 2 barren open spaces in the underworld. They were the Wild Dog Ridge and the Golden Chicken Mountain. Lung Shiqi arranged for these demonic beasts to live in the Wild Dog Ridge. He even specially changed the name to Dark Beast Ridge. This was the demonic beasts' first time in the underworld. It was obvious that they were not used to it. Especially when the netherworld chi attached to their bodies, it worsened their injuries. Lung Shiqi could only use the ability of the master of the underworld to dilute the netherworld chi around the Dark Beast Ridge as much as possible. After settling the demonic beasts, Lung Shiqi clapped his hands. This trip to the demonic miasma mountain range could be said to be fruitful. Not only did he solve the beast tied here, but he also uncovered the conspiracy of the Northern Wei Empire in one fell swoop. As for himself, he had absorbed the power of the Blood Beast Altar and the 2 7th-level demonic beasts. Not only did his cultivation soar to the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm, but his physical strength had changed even more. Now his physical body alone was comparable to a great expert of the unity of heaven and man realm. In the world, there were very few people who could cultivate their physical body to this extent. In addition, after the battle with Zhuozhou, Lung Shiqi also had a deeper understanding of his own strength. Once he digested this understanding, his strength would naturally rise to another level. The only regret was the demon bodies of the Heavenly Winged Tiger and the Mixed Demon Black Marten. They were 7th-level demonic beasts. 7th-level demonic cores, demonic skin, demonic bones, demonic blood. They were all treasures. Unfortunately, when the 2 demonic beasts fought with Zhuozhou, it was equivalent to sacrificing their demon bodies. They did not even leave behind their demonic cores and demonic souls. However, one should not be too greedy. This time he had already earned a lot. He simply packed up and was ready to return to the demonic town. When he met up with Old Han and the others again, Lung Shiqi did not explain where the demonic beasts went. Old Han and the others did not ask either. Everyone had secrets. Lung Shiqi's identity was not ordinary, and he had repeatedly risked his life for this matter. It was not a big deal for him to be a little selfish. The only thing they still felt was that the deaths of the 2 demonic beasts and Mr. Zhou were too strange. Lung Shiqi only told them that the 2 demonic beasts and Mr. Zhou had an internal conflict, and then a mysterious expert killed Mr. Zhou. Yet another mysterious expert. The person who could kill Mr. Zhou was at least at the peak of the Sky Origin realm, or even a Tongxian realm expert. Why would he appear in the demonic miasma mountain range? Why did he attack? What was his purpose? Old Han and the others wanted to know, but they had no way to find out. They could only wait until they returned to the imperial capital to report it. At last, the group returned to the demonic town. Lung Shiqi turned around and looked around. The demonic miasma mountains, which used to be bustling with noise and excitement, would be abandoned in the future. Chapter 798. In the following days, Leng Shiqi recuperated in the demon town for a while. He was seriously injured and had to take care of his body to tame the evil beasts to open the gate of the underworld, so he had to recuperate for a few days. In addition, the demon town was almost destroyed in the last battle, and was being rebuilt in full swing. It was reasonable for him to stay here for a few days. On this day, Leng Shiqi was going to return to the imperial capital with the Dark Thunder Guards and the people of the Discipline Department. After the battle, only about 70% of the people he had brought with him were left. Although they had an absolute advantage in the battle in the demon town, there were too many evil beasts and they all went crazy in the end. They would rather die than to bite off an arm, so casualties were inevitable. At this time, a guest came to the door. It was Zhuge-Puha. Zhuge-Puha was now at the 4th level of the Gang Spirit Realm. He had just entered the middle stage of the Gang Spirit Realm, so his cultivation speed was very fast. "Greetings, Lord Lu." Zhuge-Puha walked into Leng Shiqi's room and cupped his hands, seeming a little reserved. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi knew that Zhuge-Puha had something to ask for, and it was probably related to the Star Clan. He asked directly, "Brother Zhuge, you don't have to be so polite to me before. Just say what you want to say." Zhuge-Puha thought for a while and looked around. Leng Shiqi smiled and waved his hands to release several inhibition formations. Zhuge-Puha then said, "Brother Lu, actually I wanted to tell you about this when we were in the imperial capital. However, the outbreak of the beast tide in the demonic miasma mountain was too sudden, so I had no time to deal with it. Now the evil beasts in the demonic miasma mountain are gone, so it is as easy as taking something out of a pocket." "Oh, Brother Zhuge, do you mean it has something to do with the demonic miasma mountain?" "Yes, according to the exploration of the ancestors of the Zhuge family, there are also relics of the Star Clan in the demonic miasma mountain." Zhuge-Puha said seriously, "Relics of the Star Clan." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was shocked. He had obtained a lot of high-level materials in the secret chamber of the Star Clan in Ningyang County. He did not expect that there would be something left behind by the Star Clan in the demonic miasma mountain range. It was impossible for Leng Shiqi not to covet those things, but Leng Shiqi knew that it wasn't that simple. "Brother Zhuge, can you tell me more details?" Hearing this, Zhuge-Puha knew that Leng Shiqi was moved. He said, "Although our ancestors found the remains of the Star Tribe, there are many high-level demonic beasts in the demonic miasma mountain range. Normally, even Tianyuan stage cultivators would not dare to enter. That's why we only know the exact location of the ruins, but we don't know what's inside." According to Brother Lu's idea, this time we will still carry out the transaction. I will give you the location of the ruins, and Brother Lu will need to help the Zhuge family release a few more experts. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes and said, "Brother Zhuge, this is not the first time we've made a deal. Why don't you tell me how many masters you want to release this time? Also, we don't know what's in the ruins, so how are we going to split it?" Zhuge-Puha paused. "Regardless of what's in the ruins, it will all belong to Brother Lu." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was not excited. Instead, he became vigilant. No matter how bad the remains of the Star Tribe were, they were definitely top-notch treasures. Now that the Zhuge family did not want a single cent, they must want him to release a large number of masters. Seeing that Leng Shiqi did not speak, Zhuge-Puha slowly said, "Brother Lu, I'll be frank. Elder Zhuge Yin hopes that Brother Lu can release 2 Tianyuan stage experts and 10 Oneness of Heaven and Men realm experts. Brother Lu, you can rest assured that these masters are only there to find the remains of the Star Tribe and leave behind some backup plans. They will not easily reveal themselves to the world." Leng Shiqi thought to himself, 2 Tianyuan stage experts and 10 Oneness of Heaven and Men realm experts. This is enough to support a top sect. The Zhuge family's appetite is getting bigger and bigger. He hesitated for a moment. Not to mention Zhuge-Puha, Zhuge Yin must be an extremely ambitious person. What would such a person do if he had a large number of masters in his hands? Leng Shiqi would definitely not believe that Zhuge Yin would simply search for the remains of the Star Tribe. Moreover, the Zhuge family was in the territory of the Thunderblaze dynasty, and the Thunderblaze dynasty already belonged to Leng Shiqi indirectly. Of course, he did not want the Zhuge family to cause trouble in his territory. However, he was indeed coveting the remains of the Star Tribe in the demonic Miasma mountain range. After thinking for a while, he said, "Brother Zhuge, now that I am one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards, I also bear the heavy responsibility of stabilizing the Thunderblaze dynasty. If we release a large number of masters at once, it will be very difficult for me if something goes wrong and I am implicated. Moreover, we still do not know what is in the remains. The remains have been in the demonic Miasma mountain range for so long. It might have been discovered by those high-level demonic beasts. Therefore, I have a suggestion. Brother Lu, please speak. Why don't we find the remains first, and decide how many masters to release after obtaining the treasures inside? If there are enough treasures, not to mention 2 Heavenly Origin Realm experts and 10 Unity of Heaven Realm experts, even if there are more, it will be a piece of cake." Leng Shiqi stated his conditions. To put it simply, they would eat first and pay later. As for how much they would pay, it would depend on how big the meal was. Zhuge Puha looked hesitant and said, "Brother Lu, I can't make a decision on this matter yet. Can you give me some time to think about it?" Leng Shiqi knew that Zhuge Puha wanted to go back and contact Zhuge Yin. He said casually, "Of course. After all, the demon-suppressing town is still being rebuilt. Just in case, I still have to stay here for a few days. In that case, I will take my leave first. Brother Zhuge, please." After sending Zhuge Puha off, Leng Shiqi turned around and teleported to the mansion of the dead. He arrived at the Dark Beast Ridge, and found Lu Ho and a few other rank 6 demonic beasts. "Master, what's the matter?" Lu Ho saw Leng Shiqi suddenly appear and asked respectfully. Leng Shiqi asked, "Let me ask you, have you found any special places in the demonic Miasma mountain range? For example, forbidden areas or relics?" He reckoned that since the demonic Miasma mountain range had the star race's relics, and the place had been occupied by demonic beasts for many years, he might as well ask the demonic beasts who were most familiar with this place. Lu Ho and the other demonic beasts looked at each other. Among them, a giant ape said, "Master, there were some forbidden areas in the demonic Miasma mountain range in the past. However, there were basically treasures in those forbidden areas. Later on, they were all taken away by the humans. Now it seems that there is nothing special about it." This giant ape was a long-armed crimson ape. It was extremely strong. Unfortunately, one of its arms was cut off, and its combat power was greatly reduced. Previously, when Leng Shiqi said that he wanted them to recognize him as their master, this giant ape was also the most enthusiastic. "That's not right." A green snake twisted its body and said, "Have you all forgotten about the Star Moon demonic ancestor?" Chapter 799. Green Snake's words immediately reminded the few demonic beasts. Lu Monkey slapped his head and said, "I remember now, Master. About a few years ago, a mysterious place was indeed discovered. Master, you may not know that a rank 7 demonic beast, soul-leaving scorpion, was born in the demonic Miasma mountain range a few years ago. Unfortunately, 2 Sky Origin Realm cultivators wanted to capture her, and the demonic beast ancestor self-destructed. After that, a mysterious place appeared in the inner area. However, we could only look at it and sigh. Only those demonic beasts with the ability to fly could explore it because that place was in the sky. At that time, many flying demonic beasts wanted to go in, but there was something like a restriction in that place. They could not even get close to it, let alone go in. As far as we know, only the Star Moon demonic beast ancestor had approached it." Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. The first half of what Lu Ho said was naturally about 9 Leave. He did not expect this matter to be related to 9 Leave. According to what Lu Ho said, someone had actually entered that place, and it was the Heavenly Winged Tiger. Actually, the original body of the Star Moon demonic beast ancestor was not the Heavenly Winged Tiger at first, but the Moon-Gazing Tiger. Lu Ho said again and then closed his mouth meaningfully. Leng Shiqi understood. He knew about the Moon-Gazing Tiger. It was a demonic beast with a mid-level bloodline. This kind of demonic beast could only reach rank 5 at most in its lifetime. According to what Lu Ho said, The moon-gazing tiger seemed to have broken through to rank 6 because of that mysterious place. It evolved from the moon-gazing tiger to the heavenly winged tiger. After that, Zhuozhou came to the demonic miasma mountain range and found that this demonic beast had extraordinary talent. That was why he chose it for the blood beast's sacrificial refinement. Thus, the star-moon demonic beast ancestor was born. Leng Shiqi understood all this. He guessed that it was very likely to be the Star Clan's relic that Zhugepuha mentioned. However, he did not expect that place to be in the sky. He then asked, "What does that place look like?" "We don't have the ability to fly, but I heard from other demonic beasts that the place is like a night sky full of stars. Anyway, it is very mysterious." Full of stars? That was basically certain. After asking this question, Leng Shiqi said a few words and left the mansion of the dead. The next day, Zhugepuha came again. "Brother Liu, the elders have already agreed to your request. When can we go to the demonic miasma mountain range?" "Anytime." Right now, he really didn't have anything to worry about, so he quietly entered the demonic miasma mountain range with Zhugepu. Currently, the demonic miasma mountain range was very spacious and empty. It even looked a little dead. There were no longer any demonic beasts here. Ordinary small animals could not survive in the miasma. It could be said that there was no chance of survival. The speed of the two was very fast. It only took them less than half a day to reach the depths of the inner area. At this time, Zhugepuha's brows were tightly knitted. Then he took out some strange things and arranged them into a simple array. Inside, he blocked out strands of starlight. Those strands of starlight stretched out like strands of hair. But they quickly returned. Zhugepuha exclaimed softly, "Brother Liu, according to the direction of the array, the ruins should be nearby. I guess that the ruins are most likely deep underground." In the past, Leng Shiqi might also think so. After all, last time in Ningyang County, the secret treasure was in the depths of the mineral vein. Now he already knew that the ruins were actually in the sky, but he did not say it. Instead, he went underground with Zhugepuha to search. Of course, they found nothing. Leng Shiqi pretended to doubt it, but Zhugepuha was very sure that they had found the right place. When night fell, even though the demonic miasma mountain range was covered by the miasma, some vague stars could still be seen. Leng Shiqi looked up and murmured, "Could the ruins be in the sky?" At first, Zhugepuha wanted to say that it was impossible. But after thinking about it carefully, the ability of the Star Clan could not be speculated by ordinary people's thinking. Maybe the ruins were really in the sky. Leng Shiqi's mind moved, and a pair of starlight wings appeared on his back. This was not the wings of the Gu King, but a mutation after he obtained the power of the heavenly winged tiger. It could also be said that these were his own wings. "Brother Zhuge, wait a moment. I'll go up and have a look." After saying that, he directly turned into a ray of starlight, cut through the miasma, and flew straight to the 9th heaven. The higher he flew, the thinner the surrounding miasma became. More importantly, Leng Shiqi began to feel a trace of traction force. In particular, the starlight on the wings on his back shone brighter, as if there was a force attracting him. Leng Shiqi raised his eyes and looked into the distance. It was currently night, and the sky was filled with stars. Among the countless stars, there seemed to be a mysterious line connecting a portion of the stars. It looked like a simple building. "This is it." Leng Shiqi immediately activated the star bloodline in his body. The mysterious and complicated star atlas on his body suddenly spread out, and another starry universe was set up around him. Heavenly Cosmic Star Gang. At this moment, the stars in front of Leng Shiqi rotated at the same time and slowly gathered together, forming a starlight gate. Leng Shiqi spread his wings and flew straight into the gate without any hindrance. When he entered, he could not help but be a little dumbfounded. According to his imagination, there should be quite a number of treasures in the Star Tribe's relic. However, other than the empty space, he did not see anything. In other words, this place was empty. Could it be that someone had beaten him to it? He remembered that the heavenly winged tiger seemed to have entered this place. No, Luho said that the heavenly winged tiger only got close. Where did the things go? It was a pity that the heavenly winged tiger's body and soul had been destroyed, so there was no way to find out. While Lung Shiqi was puzzled, countless meteors suddenly shot out from this space and intertwined with each other, then formed a huge mysterious shadow. The shadow's appearance was roughly similar to a human's. There seemed to be countless galaxies flowing in its eyes, which were full of mystery. The pair of eyes stared at Lung Shiqi, and he felt as if he was being watched by heaven and earth. Suddenly, a pressure as if the sky was collapsing suddenly pressed down on him. He immediately activated the invincible Vajra divine skill, and the stars around him flowed. At the same time, he supported the anti-gravity field and resisted the pressure. Lung Shiqi began to sweat a lot. He was already seriously injured, and now he could only exert 20 to 30% of his strength at most. The mysterious shadow suddenly withdrew the pressure, and then a huge palm appeared. The huge palm suddenly clenched, and suddenly the space collapsed and the stars were destroyed. A thought suddenly appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind. Picking the stars, controlling time and space, and breaking the heaven and earth. Grand Star Picking Hand. Chapter 800. Lung Shiqi floated in the starry sky, and his eyes lost focus for a moment. When the great plucking star's palm touched his divine soul, his eyes regained their clarity. However, he did not expect that the treasure in this relic was not a treasure of heaven and earth, but an inheritance. The great plucking star's palm was a powerful spiritual technique, created by combining the spiritual cultivation system of the stellar tribe and the human race. According to the current system, it was comparable to a level 8 spiritual technique. Even among the level 8 spiritual techniques, it was definitely the best. It was a spiritual technique that was rarely mastered even by those in the heavenly origin stage. Moreover, the great plucking star's palm required the bloodline of the stellar tribe to perform. The stronger the bloodline, the greater the power. Lung Shiqi's bloodline of the stellar tribe was not weak, but he encountered a very awkward problem. It was difficult for him to perform this technique. This was because the great plucking star's palm not only consumed spiritual power and mental strength, but also greatly consumed the power of the bloodline. The power of the bloodline was a power that the stellar tribe cultivated over many years after awakening. Once the power of the bloodline was activated, the stellar tribe would gain great power. It was a powerful trump card for every stellar tribe member. However, although Lung Shiqi had awakened his bloodline, he had never cultivated the power of the bloodline. When he tried the great plucking star's palm, he realized that his bloodline power was still a little bit away from performing the great plucking star's palm. Lung Shiqi was a little embarrassed that he could not use such a powerful spiritual technique for the time being. It seems that I have to get the method to improve the power of the bloodline from the Zhuge family. Lung Shiqi made up his mind and then looked around. Could this be the only spiritual technique in this relic? The great plucking star's palm, a level 8 spiritual technique, was rare in the world. It was a treasure that could only be found by chance. However, compared to the secret treasure in Ningyang County, it was still a little shabby. Suddenly, all the stars in this space shrank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they were the size of a grain. Then they turned into a Milky Way that was dozens of feet long, slowly flowing around Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi looked down and saw that the mysterious star map on his body was flickering. There seemed to be some connection between the star map and the Milky Way. At the same time, the star mark in his sea of consciousness bloomed with boundless radiance, and then the Milky Way suddenly poured into his body. The next moment, a set of astral armor appeared around Lung Shiqi. It was the Star God armor that he had not used for a long time. The Star God battle armor absorbed the power of the galaxy and continued to grow. After a while, a Star God phantom that was dozens of feet tall appeared behind him. Following the passage of time, the Star God image no longer grew bigger, but rather became more and more solid, and the veined patterns on its body were also filling up. In the end, even the veins on his skin and every strand of his hair were vivid and lifelike, and the face of the Star God was 80% similar to that of Lung Shiqi. Cosmic form. This was actually a cosmic form. Boundless heaven and earth elemental energy swarmed over. Lung Shiqi's entire body was surging with a mysterious aura. The heaven and earth yuan qi in this part of the world was like a pen and paper in his hand, which he could use at will. At this moment, he could break through to the sky origin stage with only one thought. This was a realm that countless spirit cultivators could only dream of, a realm that countless unity of heaven and man cultivators could not reach in their lifetime. It turned out that other than the great star-picking hand, there was also a heaven and earth yuan qi that was completely compatible with the bloodline of the star tribe, which could help him break through to the sky origin stage. Leng Shiqi was immersed in a strange state. This feeling was really hard to describe with words. It was as if he could reach out his hand and touch the sky. He could touch a part of the origin of this world. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly quivered, and then made an unbelievable decision. He actually took the initiative to withdraw from this state, and gave up the opportunity to break through to the sky origin stage. The star god phantom behind him instantly became blurry again, but it did not dissipate. Instead, it shrank back to Leng Shiqi's body and became a star atlas again. If someone else saw this scene, they would definitely hurl abuse at Leng Shiqi. The sky origin stage was already at the peak of spirit cultivators. How many sky origin stage powerhouses could there be in the world? No matter where, the sky origin stage was the symbol of a powerhouse. It was an existence that countless people looked up to. However, Leng Shiqi clearly could have used this opportunity to break through, but he took the initiative to give up. This was simply unbelievable. Leng Shiqi took a few deep breaths, and a complicated look appeared in his eyes. It was impossible to say that he did not want to break through to the sky origin stage and obtain a super strong power. On the contrary, he was the kind of person who thirsted for power. However, Leng Shiqi was very clear that he had not completely found the path that he wanted to take. Ever since he obtained the system, the cultivation methods and spiritual skills that he had been cultivating were very heterogeneous. If he were to choose one system to break through to the sky origin stage, then there would be a huge limit to his strength in the future. For example, just now, if he had accepted the power of the stars and broken through to the sky origin stage, then he might only be able to cultivate the power of the stars in the future. Of course, other systems could also be cultivated, but without the support of the corresponding heaven and earth yuan qi, the power would be greatly reduced. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi was very ambitious. He could also say that the sky origin stage was not difficult for him. What he wanted was to rely on his own understanding of the system to break through to the sky origin stage. For example, the Li family ancestor had turned everything he had learned into the 16 heaven transformations technique. Another example was Wu Xiang, who had turned all the heterogeneous cultivation systems into a single point, so that his casual attack was all-encompassing. Leng Shiqi could use their methods to find the most suitable path for himself. Moreover, he had only broken through to the sky origin stage for a short time, so his accumulation was still insufficient. Especially when he had broken through to the sky origin stage from the middle stage to the late stage, and now to the peak stage. It had only taken him less than a month. It was really too short. If he used this opportunity to break through to the sky origin stage, and left behind any hidden dangers in his cultivation, then the gains would not make up for the losses. Leng Shiqi had also considered many times before giving up this opportunity. At this time, the stars in this space suddenly became dim, and cracks appeared in the surroundings. Leng Shiqi knew that the energy here had been depleted, which meant that there was nothing else here. This time, the Star Tribe ruins had been very successful. He had obtained a powerful spiritual skill. Although he had given up on breaking through to the sky origin stage, he had also absorbed a lot of heaven and earth yuan qi, which had strengthened his foundation. Overall, it was very good. Then he left this place and returned to the surface of the demonic Miasma mountain range. Zhuge Puha was about to ask, but Leng Shiqi said bluntly, "Brother Zhuge, we've found the Star Tribe ruins." "That's great. I wonder what's inside?" Zhuge Puha asked with joy. Chapter 801. Leng Shiqi said, "There's a powerful spiritual technique in there. There's nothing else." The smile on Zhuge Puha's face froze. The word disbelief was written all over his face. Leng Shiqi frowned. "What? Brother Zhuge, you don't believe me?" No. Zhuge Puha shook his head and retracted his expression. "How can I not believe you? Trust is the foundation of our cooperation. But thinking of the conditions you mentioned before, How many of my clan's experts can be released from that spiritual technique? Lung Shiqi thought for a moment, then said, 1 Sky Origin Cultivator and 3 Unity of Heaven. He didn't purposely make things difficult for Zhuge-Puha. The great star-plucking hand alone was enough to exchange for a Sky Origin Cultivator. He gave up the Sky Origin Cultivator's power, but he still got some benefits. Besides, the Zhuge family wouldn't be able to do anything if he released 1 Sky Origin Cultivator and 3 Unity of Heaven. Alright, let's do as Brother Lu says. This time, Zhuge-Puha agreed very straightforwardly. This was somewhat out of Lung Shiqi's expectations. My identity is a bit sensitive now, so I can't move around freely. I'll find a chance to visit the Zhuge family when I return to the imperial capital. I'll be waiting for you at any time. Zhuge-Puha cupped his hands. Then the two returned to Yao Suppressing Town. The next day, everyone prepared to return to the imperial capital. In the imperial palace, Lung Shiqi's sole doppelganger, Lei Haoyan, was still reviewing memorials. He was holding the battle report from Yao Suppressing Town. Although he and Lung Shiqi were telepathically connected, they couldn't do this if they were too far apart. When he saw the contents of the report, he didn't look surprised. Instead, he muttered, "How can I get more benefits for this body?" Just as he was thinking, a young eunuch walked over. This was the new eunuch promoted by the sole doppelganger, Zhuang. The old eunuch was still there, but his health wasn't good, so he couldn't stay by his side. Zhuang walked over respectfully and said with a strange expression, "Your Majesty, Jingfei Nyang requests an audience." Jingfei was one of the earliest imperial concubines that had followed the eldest imperial prince Lei Haoyan. Right now, she was the most prestigious imperial concubine in the Hogong, and the one most likely to sit on the throne of the empress. The position of empress was temporarily vacant because when Lei Haoyan was at his lowest, his concubines had also suffered a lot. At that time, Lei Haoyan's wife was frail and sickly. She didn't make it and passed away early. Therefore, everyone in the imperial harem was eyeing the position of empress covetously. Because of this, there were many grudges. Whenever the soul avatar thought about the harem, it would feel a headache coming on. There wasn't a single day where it could rest. However, the Hogong could never interfere in politics. The concubines of the Hogong couldn't casually come to his study. Jingfei naturally knew the rules, but she still came. It must be something important. He put down the report in his hand and said, "Invite Jingfei in." Zhuang took small, quick steps out to pass on the edict. However, just as he reached the door, he turned back, his expression strange. "Your Majesty, Imperial Concubine E also requests an audience." The soul avatar raised an eyebrow. Naturally, Imperial Concubine E was Moe Lu. She had just entered the palace and was conferred the title of Imperial Concubine E Lu. It was the envy of everyone. Her father, Mo Lin Hui, was the prime minister, and now the pavilion elder of 3 Yuan Pavilion. Other people could only be envious of this background. Other than Jingfei, Moe Lu also had a few concubines that supported her ascension. Other than that, the people that had been selected from the Ling Xiu sects were also tightly huddled together. Their identities weren't ordinary, but it was a pity that none of the powers behind them were from the imperial capital. Distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. These people had the lowest status in the Hogong, so they hugged very tightly and were able to compete with Jingfei and Yifei. Speaking of this, there was a hint that the Hogong was divided into 3 parts. The ones with the most power were Jingfei and the other elders. They had followed Lei Haoyan when he was still an imperial son. Now that they were older, they might not be able to compare to those young Gunyang in their prime, but they won in terms of status. Next were the daughters of the officials that had been selected last time. They were led by Moe Lu, and lastly were the people from the Ling Xiu sections. What was worth mentioning was that the concubines of the Ling Xiu sects had very low status, and their backs weren't very visible, but their cultivation wasn't weak. They were all in the 4th realm of celestial being. With cultivation, normal little tricks were useless against them. Instead, they had to be on guard against them, afraid that they would fight to the death. Therefore, the 3 factions in the Hogong were fighting with each other. Now that Jingfei and Yifei had come at the same time, something must have happened. Let them come in together. The soul avatar wanted to see what had happened. Very quickly, the elegant Jing Fei and the youthful Mo Lu walked in together. They bowed and said, "Jie greets your majesty. No need for formalities. It's rare for you two colleagues to come. Speak, what happened?" "Your majesty." Jing Fei's eyes suddenly turned red, and she said sorrowfully, "Jie wants to sue Yi Fei for using her power to bully others, and for being arrogant. This morning, she beat Jie's personal palace maid Xiao Jie to death in front of everyone. Xiao Jie might be a palace maid, but ever since Jie married your majesty, she has served by Jie's side. She has gone through joys and sorrows with Jie like sisters, but she didn't want to be killed by this venomous woman. Jie begs your majesty for justice. Someone had died. A palace maid had died. It wasn't a big matter in the Hogong, but it wasn't a small matter either. Normally, the death of two palace maids wasn't a big matter. The main thing was to see if there was anyone who wanted to pursue them. Now that Jing Fei was pointing this at Yi Fei, it was a big matter. The soul avatar looked at Mo Lu. Mo Lu raised her head slightly, seeming to be stubborn. She said, "I accidentally killed her." "Haha, she admitted it." "Your majesty, look, she admitted it." Jing Fei instantly started to laugh. She didn't look as pitiful as before. As an imperial concubine, she disregards human life. How can such a vicious person stay by your majesty's side? "Your majesty, how about?" A cold light flashed through the eyes of the soul avatar. He said faintly, "You are teaching Zhen how to do things?" Jing Fei's heart suddenly shuddered, and she hurriedly closed her mouth. "Do you have something to say?" the soul avatar asked. In his view, this matter was most likely arranged by Jing Fei, but if Mo Lu couldn't give a reason, then she would still be punished. Mo Lu said, "I think your majesty knows what is going on. I have nothing to say and will allow your majesty to punish me." The soul avatar laughed inside. This Mo Lu didn't have any schemes, and was even a bit naive. Otherwise, she wouldn't have purposefully targeted Lung Shiqi at the auction. If this kind of person didn't have Mo Linhui behind her, who knew how long she could survive in the Hogong? "Speak of the devil," Zhuo Ying reported with a troubled expression. "Mo Xianggua has also come." Chapter 802. Mo Linhui had personally come. Jing Fei had just come to complain and he had come. The news had spread so quickly. In this palace, who knew how many of his spies there were? The soul doppelganger silently noted down this matter. Jing Fei's expression instantly darkened. If Mo Linhui interfered in this matter, he probably couldn't do anything to Mo Lu. "Your majesty." Jing Fei had just opened her mouth when the soul doppelganger reached out to stop her. "Prime Minister Mo must have come for state matters. Go to the side hall and wait. Zhen will handle this impartially," the soul doppelganger said with authority. Jing Fei didn't dare to disobey and could only bow and leave. Before she left, she looked deeply at Mo Lu. Mo Lu also stood and said, "I didn't do it on purpose." After the two women left, Mo Linhui quickly walked over. "Your majesty, regarding Yi Fei, this old subject has something to say." The soul doppelganger shook his head and said, "Beloved official Mo, there's no need to say more. Zhen knows what happened to Yi Fei." "Knew? What did he know?" Mo Linhui was still trying to figure out his majesty's intentions when the soul doppelganger continued. "There is something strange about this matter. Zhen doesn't believe that there isn't a ghost. Therefore, Zhen has decided to deduct 3 months of Yi Fei's allowance as a warning. What does beloved official Mo think?" The matter of an imperial concubine beating a palace maid to death had been reported to the emperor. If it was an imperial concubine without any background, it was possible that she would be crippled after a fight. But when it came to Mo Lu, it was only 3 months of allowance. This was practically no punishment at all. Did the daughter of the prime minister lack that bit of allowance? Mo Linhui understood. This was his majesty giving him face. And it was done so cleanly that he didn't even have to use the speech he had prepared. He bowed and said, "My daughter is stubborn and doesn't know the rules. She has caused trouble for his majesty, but his majesty is magnanimous and does not pursue this matter. This old subject will naturally repay with his life. Since the emperor has given you so much face, you have to show some sincerity." The soul doppelganger smiled. Beloved official Mo cannot die. Zhen is still counting on you to help Zhen expand the borders and achieve great feats. Right, you should have received this report as well. As he spoke, his soul clone took out the information regarding the demonic miasma mountain range. This old subject has also just found out about the great victory in the demonic miasma mountain range. This is truly a matter of great celebration. That head steward Lu not only solved the problem in the demonic miasma mountain range, he even found the head steward of the Northern Wei Empire's consecration hall. This is truly a miraculous achievement. Not bad, it's an amazing technique. The soul avatar stood up and said, "Then what does Minister Mo think we should give him as a reward?" Mo Linhui pondered as he slowly said, "Steward Lu just received a large amount of rewards from the world's first spirit cultivator assembly half a month ago. Not only did he have the authority to act as the great commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, he was also conferred the title of Jinling Duke. Only half a month has passed, and head steward Lu has made such a great contribution. Logically speaking, he should be greatly rewarded. However, if he is given too much of a reward, this old official is afraid that there will be other voices in the court. Especially since head steward Lu is too young and inexperienced. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind." His words were rather vague. To put it bluntly, it was inappropriate to give out a large reward in a short period of time. Otherwise, it would easily cause dissatisfaction. Even if Lung Shiqi had made a genuine contribution, continuous rewards would still make people jealous, and even secretly hate him. Beloved official Mo is right, but head steward Lu has risked his life to obtain such a great victory. If his reward is mediocre, it would be unjustifiable. At this moment, Mo Linhui's expression suddenly became a bit gloomy. He said in a low voice, "This old official has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." Beloved official Mo, there is no harm in saying it. The soul doppelganger saw Mo Linhui's expression and roughly guessed what he wanted to say. Mo Linhui's eyes flashed and he said, "Your Majesty, Lu Xingji has grown too quickly. 2 years ago he was still a small supervisor in the Western Desolate Province, but now he is about to take over the Dark Thunder Guards. Regardless of whether it is his influence or strength, they are both increasing at a monstrous speed. Your Majesty has only ascended the throne for a short period of time. Previously, there was the first Spirit Cultivator Conference, and now, there is the calming of the demonic miasma mountain range. With his ability, his contributions in the future will not be small. Your Majesty, have you ever thought of a question? Now that Lu Xingji holds great power in the court, what can you give him in the future? Is it the position of commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, or the title of king? And after that, what else can you give him? Your Majesty, you must be careful that your achievements overshadow your master." The more Mo Linhui spoke, the lower his voice became, but the words that came out of his mouth were a bit harsh. If the soul doppelganger was an ordinary emperor, he would have no resistance in front of these words. He would more or less be wary and suspicious of Lung Shiqi. The soul doppelganger was silent for a moment before saying, "Then what does beloved official Mo think we should give this time? This is naturally up to your Majesty to decide." This old official only has one thing to say, and that is to try not to give him too much power. We understand. How about this? The soul doppelganger spoke his thoughts. Hearing this, Mo Linhui's eyes kept flickering, and he showed hesitation. The soul doppelganger could tell that Mo Linhui felt that the reward was a bit inappropriate. He glanced in the direction of the side hall and said, "Head steward Lu has not returned to the imperial capital yet, so this matter is not urgent. How about we discuss it another day? Beloved official Mo, you can go back first. We still have some family matters to take care of." When the words family matters were mentioned, Mo Linhui's heart trembled. A trace of understanding flashed through the depths of his eyes. So this was what His Majesty was waiting for. However, he did not understand. He had clearly said it very clearly just now, so why did His Majesty still want to do this? However, Mo Linhui still raised his head and looked straight at the soul doppelganger. "Your Majesty, this old official feels that Your Majesty's decision is the most reliable. Although there may be some people in the court who are not satisfied, This old official will take care of them properly. In that case, I will have to trouble you, beloved official Mo. Your words have been recorded in my heart. We know what to do. At this moment, Mo Linhui suddenly realized that he could no longer see through this emperor. Even an old fox like him who had served 3 dynasties could not guess the emperor's true intentions. How could he have known that the emperor in front of him was actually the same person as Leng Shiqi? The Leng Shiqi in the demon-suppressing city had already brought everyone back to the imperial capital through the interdomain teleportation formation. The information had already been sent up, so the Leng Shiqi did not immediately enter the palace. Instead, he chose to rest for 2 days. Regarding this, he was not criticized by the people who thought that he was being arrogant. This was because the matter of the demonic miasma mountain range had already spread throughout the entire Thunderfire dynasty. Leng Shiqi had snuck into the demonic miasma mountain range alone, dealing with 2 Class 7 great demonic beasts, and setting up an ambush to capture all the great demonic beasts in one fell swoop had already shocked countless people. Furthermore, the mastermind behind the demonic miasma mountain range was actually the head of the consecrated hall of the Northern Wei dynasty. This was simply a provocation to the Thunderfire dynasty. Many people cursed at the Northern Wei Empire, and some of them even shouted that they wanted to attack the Northern Wei Empire. It was impossible for them to attack the Northern Wei dynasty, but it was not a problem to use this matter as a warning. More importantly, Leng Shiqi had even brought back Zhuozhou's corpse. Zhuozhou was an expert at the peak of the heavenly origin stage, and was in charge of the Northern Wei dynasty's consecrated hall. He could be considered as the face of the Northern Wei dynasty. But he still died at the hands of Leng Shiqi. This not only caused the Northern Wei dynasty's strength and face to be greatly damaged, it also caused countless people to clap their hands in joy. During this period of time, Leng Shiqi's prestige in the Thunderfire dynasty was unparalleled. Chapter 803. After 2 days, Leng Shiqi was summoned to the palace. According to his intention, he still wanted to recover for a period of time. His injuries were very serious, and he had overdrawn a lot of his strength. He needed a long time to recover. Even though he had many heavenly treasures on him that could increase his recovery speed, it would take at least 1 or 2 months for him to recover to his peak state. Right now, he could at most use 40% of his strength. Fortunately, he was in the capital, and there should be no problem with a large number of experts guarding him. The reason why he was in such a hurry to enter the palace was because he wanted to take advantage of the time when his prestige was at its peak to have more confidence. When Leng Shiqi stepped into the palace hall, all the other officials had already arrived. Everyone was looking at him. Everyone's eyes were different. There was admiration, reverence, envy, jealousy, and of course dissatisfaction. It could be said that life was filled with all kinds of emotions. Leng Shiqi walked to the center of the hall and said righteously, "Your Majesty, I did not disappoint you. I have already cleared the beast tide in the demonic miasma mountain range." The sole avatar on the dragon throne laughed heartily. Not only did Minister Lu get rid of the beast tide, he also caught the Northern Wei Empire behind it. This is a great contribution. This is all thanks to your Majesty. I dare not claim any credit. What are you talking about? Today, I summoned Minister Lu here to reward him. I have already drafted a decree. Zhuang. Zhuang, the little eunuch, immediately held up an imperial decree and read it aloud. By the will of the heavens, the emperor decrees that Lu Xingji, one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards, has wiped out the beast tide and destroyed the Northern Wei Empire's conspiracy. He has specially conferred the title of prince. Conferred the title of prince. Prince with a different surname? Boom. The imperial court exploded in an uproar. Since ancient times, there were very few princes in each generation. Only the more outstanding princes had the chance to be conferred the title of prince. Moreover, every time there was a change in the imperial power, there would be a few princes who would die. This was a common occurrence. As for princes with different surnames, there were less than 10 of them since the establishment of the Thunderflame dynasty. Those who were conferred the title of prince were all people who had made great contributions. They were even people who had helped the Thunderflame dynasty conquer this land. But what about Leng Shiqi? Even though he had exterminated the beast tide and killed the head of the Northern Wei Empire's Hall of Consecration in a few days, which was a great achievement, he was still not qualified to be conferred the title of king. The soul doppelganger frowned and circulated the spiritual energy in its body. Waves of invisible pressure filled the hall. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines and lowered their heads in silence. Zhuoying read it again. Lu Xingji was a supervisor in the West Baron state with his spirit pulse realm cultivation. During that period of time, his rule was peaceful. He even uncovered the smuggling of refined iron in Zhulu state and exterminated the Xianyang sect. After which, he sent an envoy to Zhulu country, secretly forcing them to submit to the Emperor dynasty due to the internal chaos. He was promoted to the supervisor of North County in Gang Spirit Realm. He took part in the elite meeting, and then entered the headquarters of Dark Thunder Guards to become the supervisor. During the trip to Shantai County, he had eliminated the Thunder Extermination Alliance and their accomplice, the Sky Crane Gang, and obtained the Heavenly Thunderfire Pearl from Kong Hen Tian. He had been recognized by the late emperor, and was specially appointed as one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards. He was ordered to destroy the top sect, the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, and killed the Thousand Illusion Sword Master by himself to turn the situation around. Not long ago, many masters entered the palace and the Emperor dynasty was in danger. Lu Xingji was not afraid of danger and stepped forward bravely, showing the true colors of the Emperor dynasty. Since His Majesty ascended the throne, the biggest hidden danger of the Emperor dynasty was the spiritual cultivation sections. Lu Xingji planned the world-first spiritual cultivator conference and made the sects in the world fight for themselves. Now they can't even take care of themselves, and the crisis of the Emperor dynasty has disappeared. A few days ago, there was a monster tide in the demon Miasma Mountain, and the Northern Wei dynasty intervened. Lu Xingji took the risk and won a great victory. Zhuoying stopped here. He briefly described the experience of Leng Shiqi along the way, but all the courtiers were silent. Because this experience was simply too shocking. If this experience was spread to several people, it would be enough to be praised. But it happened to one person. It was too terrible. Leng Shiqi's strength and ability were too terrifying. He was always able to survive in desperate situations. What was even more terrifying was the speed of his growth. Only a few years had passed since he entered the Dark Lightning Guards in the West Desolate Province. If it was an ordinary person, it would be very good if they could become a great supervisor in such a short time. But Leng Shiqi was now one of the 4 great supervisors and Jinling Duke, who had the power to act as the great commander. Now he was about to be conferred the title of king. If not for everyone hearing it with their own ears, they might have treated this as a joke. Seeing that all the courtiers were silent, the soul doppelganger said, "I didn't want to say much. In my opinion, a trusted official like Lu Xingji is not even enough to be a king. I understand your thoughts, but think about it. When 6 Directions Spirit Sovereign brought a large number of spiritual cultivation sect experts to attack the Emperor Palace, who was the first to stand up? Lu Xingji was willing to die to protect the dignity of the Thunderblaze dynasty. This courage and this loyalty are rarely seen. A mere king is nothing." The courtiers' expressions began to waver. There were many reasons why they were not willing to let Leng Shiqi be conferred the title of king, but all of them had a common reason. They were afraid that Leng Shiqi's achievements would overshadow the emperor's and cause chaos in the Thunderblaze dynasty. Perhaps he did not have such thoughts now, but what about in the future? People change. At this time, Mo Linhui took 2 steps forward. He knew that it was time for him to appear. "Head Steward Lu, I have a question to ask." Leng Shiqi knew that this old thing was about to start acting. "Minister Mo, please ask." According to the rules of the imperial dynasty, all kings with different surnames will have their own fief. May I ask if Supervisor Lu is willing to stay in the imperial capital, or have your own fief? When the others heard this, they immediately perked up. If Leng Shiqi was conferred the title of king, he would naturally have to go to his own fief. That would mean that he would have to leave the imperial capital, the center of power. Although he had a lot of power in his fief and could be called a country within a country, he was not much of a threat. Because in this world, if you wanted to rebel, you not only needed the number of soldiers, but also the number of experts. In terms of experts, could you have more than the Thunderblaze dynasty? Therefore, once you were conferred the title of king, it meant that your power was almost at its peak. In the past, all the kings with different surnames were like this. They wanted to eliminate the potential threats of these people. Moreover, everyone thought of another layer. That was that Lung Shiqi going to his fief seemed to conflict with the position of Dark Thunder Guard commander. The Dark Thunder Guard commander had to stay in the imperial capital headquarters. But after being conferred the title of king, he would have to go to his fief. How would he choose? Thinking of this, the courtiers felt a little better. In their eyes, the position of Dark Thunder Guard commander was even more tempting than being conferred the title of king. It was a position that controlled the intelligence of the entire Thunderblaze dynasty and held countless secrets. In this world, if there was one person that no one wanted to offend, it would definitely be the Dark Thunder Guard commander. Originally, Lung Shiqi could have taken over the position of Dark Thunder Guard commander after breaking through to Sky Origin stage. But now, if he accepted the title of king and went to his fief, the position of Great Commander would basically be abolished. And if he wanted the position of Great Commander, he would have to reject being conferred the title of king. When the courtiers understood this, they immediately felt that their emperor was playing a trick of a promotion in name, but a demotion in reality. He was truly farsighted. They also wanted to see how Lung Shiqi would choose. Lung Shiqi said without hesitation, "This subject is naturally willing to follow the rules of the imperial capital and go to his fief." Chapter 804. Lung Shiqi's casual words stunned Mo Linhui and the other officials. Being the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards and being conferred the title of king were both great benefits. Different people might have different choices if they wanted to control the intelligence of the world, or be a prince who controlled a region. But to make such a decision, he had to think it through carefully. However, Lung Shiqi's reply was too fast. Lung Shiqi looked around and took in everyone's expressions. He laughed and said, "Officials, I believe none of you want to see me take the position of commander of the Dark Thunder Guards." The officials were stunned because Lung Shiqi's words hit the nail on the head. Today, including the previous reward, they were all against Lung Shiqi. Once he became the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards in the future, he would have their weak points in his hands. Who among those present dared to say that they were clean? Even if there was only the slightest bit of uncleanliness, it would still be used as a topic of discussion. It was no secret that Lung Shiqi was someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Apart from this, I know what you're worried about. You're afraid that my achievements will overshadow your master. Since that's the case, let me leave the imperial capital and let you be at ease. Head Steward Lu is righteous. Mo Linhui suddenly shouted. These people made everyone feel a little guilty. Look at them. In order to eliminate the groundless threat, they gave up the position of commander of the Dark Thunder Guards. Just this point alone was enough to make people admire them. However, some people felt that it was a little strange. With their understanding of Lung Shiqi, he was not someone who would easily be taken advantage of. As expected, Lung Shiqi turned to the dragon throne and said, "However, I also have a condition." The soul clone stretched out his hand and said, "Dear official, there is no harm in saying it. I want to choose a piece of land for myself." The others immediately fell into deep thought. The Thunderflame dynasty had a total of 36 provinces. Naturally, there were many differences. Some provinces had thin spirit chi, and the people worked hard. Some provinces were rich and could be called heavens. There was still a huge gap between them. In the past, no matter if it was a prince or a prince with a different surname, they did not have the right to choose their own fief. It was a decision made after much consideration. However, Lung Shiqi had given up the position of commander of the Dark Thunder Guards and was willing to go to the fief. It seemed reasonable to let him choose a prefecture. The soul avatar looked around and saw that no one was going to object. He said, "Of course. Bring me the map." Soon, the two eunuchs unfurled the map of the Thunderflame dynasty in the hall. There were 36 provinces and some markings on it. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the map. The most fertile places were Donglin County, Pinghui County, and other places. These states and counties were adjacent to the ocean and had countless rare resources. Moreover, there was no threat from other dynasties. Only the overseas forces were weak and couldn't threaten the Thunderblaze dynasty at all. It was simply a place to pick up money. Moreover, the 9 eastern counties that Leng Shiqi was in charge of included these places. Therefore, everyone thought that he would choose this place. Leng Shiqi stood still for a while and pointed at a place on the map. "Your Majesty, I want this place." Everyone immediately looked over, and their expressions changed. The place that Leng Shiqi chose was the Western Wilderness County. Although the Western Wilderness County had the word wilderness, it was definitely not a barren land. On the contrary, it was the western border of the Thunderblaze dynasty. It was connected to the 6 countries of the western region, and had been conducting trade all year round. In terms of richness, it was only slightly inferior to Donglin County. The officials were shocked because they felt that Leng Shiqi would not consider this place at all. Or rather, the Thunderblaze dynasty would never treat the Western Wilderness County as Leng Shiqi's fief. There was only one reason. This was the border. How could the border be given to a prince with a different surname? Previously, everyone was willing to accept Leng Shiqi as king because they thought that he wouldn't be able to do anything in his fief. However, if he raised a large number of troops in the Western Wilderness County and colluded with the 6 countries of the Western region, or even the Starfall dynasty, then opened the border gates, the Thunderblaze dynasty would be caught off guard. The Western Wilderness County could not be given to him. In a blink of an eye, an official came out and said, "Head Steward Liu, you can choose to be king and fief. Other than the western, southern, and northern borders, you can choose any county. I think His Majesty has the same intention." "That's right. Head Steward Liu, you should choose another place. It's not that we don't believe you, but this is an important border. We must be careful." The officials began to persuade Leng Shiqi. Emo Linhui waited until the last to speak. "Can Head Steward Liu tell us why you chose the Western Wilderness County? It started in the Western Wilderness County, that's all." Leng Shiqi only said these few words and didn't want to explain more. This was a reason that couldn't be considered a reason. It definitely couldn't convince the officials. Everyone thought that Emo Linhui would refute. Unexpectedly he said, "I see. It seems that Head Steward Liu is a man of character. Your Majesty, I think that we can give the Western Wilderness County to Head Steward Liu." Wow. The hall was instantly filled with exclamations. It was impossible that Emo Xianghua didn't know the importance of the border. Then why did he still support Leng Shiqi? Could it be that he had been bought over by Leng Shiqi? Most of the people thought so. However, they remembered that Emo Xianghua had been a senior official for 3 dynasties. Although he wasn't completely clean, he had never married anyone. This didn't seem like his style. Emo Linhui continued, "I know that everyone is worried. However, don't forget that the Western Wilderness County is guarded by the Azure Thunder Army. I don't think anyone would dare to invade. Moreover, with Head Steward Liu, the Western Wilderness County will be safe." Hearing this, the officials' eyes lit up. Because Emo Linhui mentioned the Azure Thunder Army. This was the elite army of the Thunderfire dynasty guarding the border. They were even stronger than the Azure Thunder Army. Even if Leng Shiqi went to the Western Wilderness County, he would still be suppressed by the Azure Thunder Army. On the other hand, if Leng Shiqi chose to go to another county, he would basically be the local tyrant. However, in the Western Wilderness County, with the Azure Thunder Army suppressing him, he could only be a free and unfettered lord at most. Thinking about it this way, Leng Shiqi going to the Western Wilderness County seemed quite good. At that moment, no one in the hall objected. The soul clone struck while the iron was hot. He waved his hand and said, "Since there are no objections, I have decided to give Lu Xingji the title of prince and the Western Wilderness County as his fief." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Leng Shiqi bowed respectfully. Emo Linhui turned around and cupped his fists. "Congratulations, Head Steward Liu. No, I should call you Western Wilderness King now." All the officials said in unison, "Congratulations, Western Wilderness King." Chapter 805. Soon, the imperial edict was announced to the world. When Leng Shiqi returned to the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, many of his subordinates had already gathered at the Xingji Pavilion. They all knew that Leng Shiqi was about to leave the imperial capital for the Western Desolate Province. Interestingly, although he had acquiesced to give up his position as the commander of the Dark Thunder Guard, he did not step down as one of the 4 directors. In other words, he still had the power to supervise the 9 eastern counties. He was going to guard the western border and supervise the 9 eastern counties, so he still had a lot of power. So for his subordinates, they had to make a choice. Would they choose to stay in the imperial capital, or follow him to the Western Desolate Province? Since these people could stay in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, it was enough to prove their ability. Moreover, the imperial capital was full of high officials and nobles. The status of the Dark Thunder Guard was special. Although they were not very popular, they could still get a lot of benefits. In the beginning, they had spent a lot of effort to enter the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard. Naturally, some people were unwilling to leave so easily. But then again, following Leng Shiqi to the Western Desolate Province was not a bad choice. In the Western Desolate Province, their power might not be as great as now, but their future might be better. Because Leng Shiqi was too monstrous. These people of the Dark Thunder Guard watched Leng Shiqi grow up step by step. They were sure that his path would be longer. Following such a master, their future would be bright. So, these people began to have their own ideas. Leng Shiqi walked in. Everyone immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, "Greetings, Head Steward Lu, greetings, Your Highness King of the Western Desolate Province. Don't be so polite. We are family. Get up." Leng Shiqi saw what they were thinking at a glance. He continued, "You all know about the matter, but I will go to the fief in a few days. Prepare well in these few days." Everyone knew that this was the time Leng Shiqi gave them to think. Of course, Leng Shiqi did have some things to deal with first. First of all, the candidates for the new 4 great chiefs. Mo Linhui had mentioned to his soul avatar a long time ago about the replacement of the 4 Dark Thunder Guards. However, at that time, there was a beast tide, so the matter was temporarily put aside. Now that the Miasma mountain range had been cleared, and Leng Shiqi was about to leave the capital, he needed to properly manage the Dark Thunder Guards before he left. This was his foothold, and he couldn't afford to lose it. According to him, the one to be replaced among the 4 great general managers was General Manager Hai. He was already old, and it was time for him to abdicate. Originally, after every change of imperial power, at least 2 of the 4 chief stewards would be replaced. Coincidentally, Leng Shiqi was also newly appointed, so they could only replace Chief Steward Hai. Mo Linhui had once recommended a few people, but those people were all closely related to him, so he definitely couldn't use them. Leng Shiqi already had a candidate in mind, Quan Jingji. This person had competed with Leng Shiqi for the position of one of the 4 great chiefs. He was too straightforward, so he was destined to fail. From Leng Shiqi's point of view, this kind of person was the most suitable for an important position, especially for an intelligence organization like the Dark Thunder Guards. Now that this matter had been decided, the next step was for his soul avatar to make the decision. Other than that, there was another person who should return, and that was Eunuch Gao. When Lei Haoge was still the crown prince, he had indirectly sent Eunuch Gao to the imperial tombs for 3 years. Now only half of the 3 years had passed, and his authority had always been in the hands of a few deputy directors. If Leng Shiqi remained in the capital, those people naturally wouldn't dare to do anything. After he left, there would inevitably be some trouble. It was best to transfer Eunuch Gao back quickly. Even though Eunuch Gao had always been using Leng Shiqi to nurture him, if not for the many opportunities Eunuch Gao had given him, he wouldn't have been able to get to where he was today so easily. When Eunuch Gao returned, he could also help Leng Shiqi look after the 9 eastern prefectures. It was a win-win situation. These 2 things could be done by his soul avatar, and he still had to go find Empyrean Black Flame. This time, he had given up the opportunity to become the Dark Thunder Guard's commander, which could be considered as selling a great favor to Empyrean Black Flame. This favor had to be returned. But he didn't expect that before he went to find Empyrean Black Flame, the other party had already come. A wisp of black flame floated in front of Lung Shiqi. An Empyrean black flame's figure appeared. He was looking at Lung Shiqi with an inexplicable expression. "Greetings, great commander. You are already the king of the Western Wilderness, so there is no need to salute. I didn't expect you to choose to give up the Dark Thunder Guard's commander. You are not such a person." Empyrean black flame said doubtfully. Lung Shiqi smiled. "Great commander is right. I am indeed a very ambitious person, but the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. If I blindly pursue great power, I might end up burning myself." Empyrean black flame nodded in appreciation. "You are young and in the limelight, yet you can still maintain such a clear mind. Do you know how many people like you have died an unnatural death? In addition, the position of Dark Thunder Guard's commander is not a good one. I have too many unknown secrets of the Thunderflame dynasty, so many that you can't even imagine. You being able to leave the quagmire that is the imperial capital in time to manage a province is also a good choice. However, after you leave, it will be difficult for His Majesty to find someone to take over my position in a short period of time. I cannot take this favor for free. Take this." Empyrean black flame took out 2 jade slips. One of them contains all the information about the Western Wilderness province, no matter how big or small. I believe it will be useful to you. As for the other one, it records the thunder attribute, divine thunder of annihilation. Not only does it have the specific location, but it also has the method to collect and refine it. Lung Shiqi didn't refuse and took the 2 jade slips. Of these 2 things, one could help him control the Western Wilderness province, and the other could greatly increase his strength. He had to admit that they were both things he wanted. It seemed that Empyrean Black Flame had come prepared. "Thank you, Commander. There's no need for such polite words. I have a premonition that even if you're far away in the Western Desolate Province, you won't remain silent. I want to see just how far you can go." Heavenly Sovereign He Yen left before his voice faded. Lung Shiqi's eyes flashed. He then put away the 2 jade slips and continued to recuperate in seclusion. In the Blood Beast sect, a group of higher-ups gathered in front of a formation. The leader was the current sect master, Situ Huanshu. Their expressions were very solemn. A formation master said, "Sect master, we have tried our best to track the sovereign beast's aura, but we found that it is extremely far away. Based on the direction, it should be in the Thunderflame dynasty." Thunderflame dynasty. Situ Huanshu felt that it was very troublesome. Beside him, Siepingyu suddenly clapped his hands and said, "Sect master, the location indicated by the formation is the demonic Miasma mountain range that I went to a few years ago." Chapter 806. Of course, everyone in the Blood Beast sect knew about the demonic Miasma mountain range. Other than the extreme north, only the demonic Miasma mountain range had demonic beasts in the entire Starfall continent. Occasionally, they would make a trip to the demonic Miasma mountain range to capture demonic beasts. However, due to the distance, they couldn't go there easily unless there were special circumstances. For example, 9 Leaves Tribulation. When Siepingyu mentioned the demonic Miasma mountain range, Situ Huanshu asked, "You mean Zhuozhou is in the demonic Miasma mountain range?" "Sect master, I can't be sure. However, judging from the location, it's very likely." Siepingyu didn't give a definite answer. "The matter of the revered beast is of great importance. We can't be careless. You've been to the demonic Miasma mountain range before, so I'll have to trouble you to make another trip." Siepingyu revealed a difficult expression and said hesitantly, "It's not a big deal. However, Sect Master, the new emperor of the Thunderfire dynasty, has just ascended the throne. This Lei Haoyan is very powerful. It won't be easy for us Heavenly Origin stage cultivators to enter the Thunderfire dynasty." Situ Huanshu narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment before saying, "It's not difficult. Follow me to the imperial city of the Northern Wei dynasty. I believe they will be willing to help us." Northern Wei dynasty Imperial Palace. The current emperor of the Northern Wei dynasty, Wei Xuandi, sat in his study with a worried expression. There were 2 items on the table in front of him. One of them was a broken blood-colored jade token, while the other was a memorial. The blood-colored jade token was an item that contained Zhuozhou's blood essence. The fact that the token was broken meant that Zhuozhou was dead. In order to recruit Zhuozhou, the Northern Wei dynasty had paid a huge price to fake his death. Later on, Zhuozhou became the head of the consecration hall with his powerful strength, and had done many things for the Northern Wei dynasty. Not long ago, he said that he wanted to sneak into the Thunderfire dynasty. At first, Wei Xuandi didn't take it to heart. Zhuozhou was a peak heavenly origin stage cultivator. As long as it wasn't the Thunderfire dynasty's old man Xiao, no one could stop him. However, he had miscalculated. Zhuozhou had died inexplicably. This was a huge loss for Wei Xuandi. His Northern Wei dynasty's foundation was far inferior to the Starfall dynasty and the Thunderfire dynasty. Zhuozhou was already one of the few experts that they could send out. But now he had actually fallen. Not only that, but the other report was a reprimand from the Thunderfire dynasty. He even said that he would send a group of envoys over to Northern Wei to clarify the situation. The Northern Wei Empire was in the wrong in this matter. And Emperor Xuandi of Wei was having a headache. At this moment, someone came in and reported, "Your Majesty, the Blood Beast sect leader, Situ Huanxiu, and Grand Elder Xiepingyu have arrived." Wei Xuandi was stunned. His eyes flashed with a trace of uneasiness, but it was immediately replaced by a burst of brilliance. He smiled and said, "Please." Within the underworld, Leng Shiqi, Delta Origi, Yushu, and Meng Ming had gathered in the form of the Netherlamp. "You've been crowned king? You want to go to the Western Desolate Prefecture? Then how are you going to deal with the Dark Thunder Guards?" When the three of them heard the news about Leng Shiqi, they all asked about it. "Everyone thinks that I'm the most favored person in front of the Emperor, but in his heart, he has already begun to fear me. Since that's the case, it's better to leave as soon as possible." Leng Shiqi did not speak the truth. After all, the matter of his soul avatar possessing the Emperor was not something that could be spread. Delta Origi nodded and said, "Even so, but how are you going to explain to the Blood Robe Pavilion?" Yushu and Ming Ming also looked over. Leng Shiqi left just like that. Becoming a prince with a different surname was not bad. But this was not a good thing for the Blood Robe Pavilion. If Leng Shiqi became the great commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, it could be said that the Blood Robe Pavilion's plan was already half completed. When the Blood Robe Pavilion rose up, as long as Leng Shiqi secretly manipulated it, who in the world would dare to go against him? This would be able to control more than half of the spirit cultivator sects, reducing most of the pressure on the Blood Robe Pavilion. But now that Leng Shiqi gave up the position of great commander and became a prince, this was a huge opportunity for the Blood Robe Pavilion. One could imagine that soon, the upper echelons of the Blood Robe Pavilion would come looking for them. However, Leng Shiqi smiled coldly. "There's no need to explain to the Blood Robe Pavilion. If they're smart, they can only continue to maintain their current relationship with me, because I already have enough qualifications to talk to them on equal terms." The number of unity of heaven and man experts under his command was already more than the Blood Robe Pavilion. Although he himself was not at the Sky Origin realm, after absorbing the power of the Blood Beast altar and the two demons, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. He could completely fight against a Sky Origin realm expert. In addition, he had also received a part of the power of the Star Race's ruins. At this moment, he was only one step away from the Sky Origin realm. Unless several Sky Origin realm experts of the Blood Robe Pavilion attacked at the same time, he was not afraid of anyone. This was the confidence that strength gave him. The Blood Robe Pavilion had cultivated him and Delta Origi, and at the same time, they were also using them. Both sides could be considered as using each other, and they had always maintained this relationship of interest. That was why Leng Shiqi said that the Blood Robe Pavilion would not easily attack him. You must always remember that strength is the foundation of standing in this world. After I leave, you must do your best to improve your strength. "Don't worry," Yushu said with a smile. Xiongming nodded in agreement. After that, the few of them discussed for a while and then dispersed, but Delta Origi stayed. "I can't help you more and more." During the last trip to the demonic Miasma Mountains, Delta Origi could not do anything from the beginning to the end. Even though she knew that Leng Shiqi was in a dangerous place, She could not do anything. This matter had always been on her mind. How could Leng Shiqi not know what she was thinking? He said, "Don't think too much. I've already left you a backup plan. Next, you just need to show your talent and ability to your heart's content. I think it won't be long before you have a place in the 4 great punishment emissaries." He could not help but ask Delta Origi more. He continued, "Did that Yun Xingxing you mentioned last time still come to bother you?" "Occasionally. There's already news from the Discipline Commission that Monarch Cloud Shuttle is about to abdicate. Yun Xingxing has been busy forming factions recently, so he doesn't have much time to bother me." "Is that so?" Leng Shiqi's killing intent slowly rose in his heart. Delta Origi instantly saw through Leng Shiqi's thoughts. "I don't care what you want to do, but if you want to do it cleanly. Also, before you leave, give me some more essence blood." At the mention of essence blood, Leng Shiqi thought of the blood shadow secret technique that Delta Origi had created. He wondered to what extent she had researched it. After the last battle, he had also lost a lot of essence blood. Fortunately, he had replenished it recently, so this was not a problem. Chapter 807. The next day, something big happened in the royal capital. Yun Xingxing, the personal disciple of the Discipline Commission's Monarch Cloud Shuttle, died in his room. Monarch Cloud Shuttle was a calm person, but this time he was furious. He swore to find the murderer and avenge his disciple. He was about to abdicate, so before he left, he had been paving the way for Yun Xingxing, hoping that he could take over his position. He had no children, so he loved this disciple very much. But now, Yun Xingxing was dead. And he died mysteriously. There were no wounds on Yun Xingxing's body, but there was no sign of life. It was as if his soul had been taken away. Monarch Cloud Shuttle did everything he could, but he couldn't find the cause of Yun Xingxing's death. He even invited Lord Black Flame and the Dark Thunder Guards, but it was all for naught. The one who did this was naturally Leng Shiqi. He quietly snuck into Yun Xingxing's room and used the 6 paths of reincarnation to take away his soul. Leng Shiqi wanted to kill Yun Xingxing not only because he wanted the Delta Origi, but also because he would be a stumbling block for the Delta Origi. He would have to get rid of him sooner or later. This matter caused a stir in the royal capital, and Leng Shiqi was entertaining someone. He was Eunuch Gao. His soul doppelganger had already ordered Eunuch Gao to come back. Today he had arrived at the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters. Eunuch Gao seemed to have changed a lot. His previous gloominess had faded a lot, and there was even a hint of kindness. Leng Shiqi thought he was seeing things. Eunuch Gao laughed and said, "What, don't you recognize me?" "Master, you have changed a little. Alas, the late emperor has passed away. I have my wish to keep the power of the 4 great chiefs. This is all thanks to you. Now my status is not small, and I have no children by my side. What is there to be dissatisfied with? If I have to say what I want, it is only the heaven's origin realm." Leng Shiqi inwardly agreed. Eunuch Gao's power and status had already reached the limit. Perhaps the time he spent guarding the mausoleum had allowed him to quietly observe everything. The most desirable thing in this world was power. If Eunuch Gao was a Sky Origin Stage cultivator, he wouldn't have to spend so much effort to train his followers to protect his power. When you have enough power, authority will naturally follow. Eunuch Gao stretched out a finger, and there were 2 streams of light revolving around it. One was the underworld cold chi that Eunuch Gao was most proficient in. The other one surprised Leng Shiqi. It was actually a wisp of Buddhist light. During my time in the Imperial Mausoleum, I understood many things. In my spare time, I have been thinking about how to break through to the Sky Origin stage. Unexpectedly, I found that the flower pinching form that I got from you can coexist with the frigid Hell Chi. Even though they were clearly opposing forces, they could still rely on each other. This allowed the miscellany to find a path to the divine origin realm. Unfortunately, the flower pinching form's level is too low. I have already studied it to the extreme. If I can learn something similar to the flower pinching form's power, I may be able to make further progress in my lifetime. The more Leng Shiqi listened, the more shocked he became. He never thought that the flower pinching form that he casually took out would be the key to Eunuch Gao's breakthrough. However, he thought about it again. Eunuch Gao was a eunuch who cultivated the frigid hell qi. He didn't have any yang energy. The Buddhist light was the most yang energy. The harmony of yin and yang caused Eunuch Gao's temperament to change. At the same time, it was the key to his breakthrough. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi had an idea. Eunuch Gao was hinting that Leng Shiqi didn't have any more Buddhist cultivation techniques on him by mentioning this in front of him. He had a lot of Buddhist techniques. If he gave Eunuch Gao a few and let him study them, he might be able to break through to the sky origin stage. However, he couldn't give them away for free. Right now, Leng Shiqi was more powerful than Eunuch Gao. He didn't know what Eunuch Gao could give him in exchange. All of a sudden, a thought flashed through Leng Shiqi's mind. He looked at Eunuch Gao, who had changed greatly, and asked tentatively, "Master, do you trust this disciple?" "Xingji, you have already surpassed your master. I don't have any evil intentions towards you. I don't have the ability to do that. Just tell me what you want." Leng Shiqi looked straight at Eunuch Gao and said, "Then this disciple will speak frankly. To be honest, I do have some cultivation methods and spirit techniques that are similar to the flower grasping form. I call them Buddhist cultivation methods. I can give them all to you. If you can break through to the sky origin stage, it will be great for me. However, I have a condition." "It's normal to have a condition. Tell me, what is the value of my old bones?" Eunuch Gao was half joking with Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi set up restrictions around them and said carefully, "I want to invite you to join my organization called the Underworld. It's not a force. There are very few members and we don't know each other's identities. Our goal is to take what we need and benefit each other. After I go to the West Desolate Province, I need you to help me look after the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. It will be easier for us to go through the underworld." That's right, Leng Shiqi wanted to invite Eunuch Gao to join the underworld. If it was before, he wouldn't even dare to think about it. However, with Leng Shiqi's improvement and Eunuch Gao's change, he had this idea. First of all, the two of them had a purely beneficial relationship from the beginning. This kind of relationship couldn't be said to be loyal or absolute trust. However, they had worked together for a long time and knew each other well. Leng Shiqi believed that after Eunuch Gao received benefits from the underworld, he would only keep his mouth shut. In addition, since Eunuch Gao had touched the threshold of the sky origin stage, it meant that his talent was very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to touch the foot of the mountain. Therefore, Eunuch Gao could also reach the level of the 10 Kings of Hell, and help Leng Shiqi complete one of the conditions for the underworld to upgrade. Finally, and also the most important thing for Leng Shiqi, after Eunuch Gao received the inheritance of the underworld and learned more Buddhist techniques, he had a great chance of breaking through to the sky origin stage. Once he became a sky origin stage expert, he could be promoted to the position of the Dark Thunder Guard commander, with just a decree from his soul avatar. Although Leng Shiqi gave up this position, he could indirectly control all the information in the world. It could be said to be killing many birds with one stone. Of course, all of this depended on Eunuch Gao's thoughts. Eunuch Gao's eyelids twitched. "It seems that you have begun to cultivate various forces. I have no objections to joining the underworld as long as there is a chance of breaking through to the sky origin stage." "Thank you for your help, Master. How about this disciple bring Master to the underworld to take a look?" "Take a look?" Eunuch Gao was slightly stunned. He thought that the underworld was just a name. He didn't expect it to be a place. Leng Shiqi smiled mysteriously. "Don't resist, Master." After saying that, Leng Shiqi pulled Eunuch Gao and teleported into the underworld in the blink of an eye. After entering the underworld, Eunuch Gao was no different from those who had entered for the first time. He was shocked by the strange scene in the underworld. Leng Shiqi looked into the distance. Sure enough, above the underworld's 9 heavens, there was suddenly a black aura pouring down and enveloping Eunuch Gao. The familiar yet strange voice resounded in the underworld again. "King of Hell." Chapter 808. Several hours later, Leng Shiqi and Eunuch Gao had already left the underworld, and Eunuch Gao's expression still carried a hint of surprise. "Master, you've obtained some inheritance. Why don't you hurry back and comprehend it?" Eunuch Gao took a deep look at Leng Shiqi, nodded, and prepared to leave. However, before he left, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something and asked, "I've been looking through the latest information for the past 2 days and found something interesting. Do you still remember Leng Shiqi, who was ranked on the Flying Dragon list in the previous World First Spirit Cultivator Assembly?" Hearing the name Leng Shiqi, a strange feeling flashed through Leng Shiqi's heart. He replied, "I do remember him a little. What happened to him?" "I don't know what happened to him, but I accidentally discovered that many people were secretly inquiring about this person. If it was an ordinary spirit cultivator sect, it would be fine, but the Six Directions Spirit region was among them." Eunuch Gao's tone was a little serious. Six Directions Spirit region. That was one of the 4 Saint Spirit regions, the most powerful force in the Thunderfire dynasty. They even had a Tongxian realm expert like the Six Directions Spirit Sovereign. Back then, it was the Six Directions Spirit Sovereign who brought many experts into the palace. Now the Six Directions Spirit region was inquiring about Leng Shiqi. What were they trying to do? Eunuch Gao guessed, "I'm worried that the Six Directions Spirit region wants to use this Leng Shiqi to contact the overseas forces. The overseas spirit cultivator's cultivation is not high, but there are a few Sky Origin realm experts. If the overseas forces are roped in by the Six Directions Spirit region, it will be a major threat to the dynasty." However, Leng Shiqi did not think that this was the goal of the Six Directions Spirit region, because he knew that the Six Directions Spirit region recognized the name Leng Shiqi. After Leng Shiqi returned to the Bloodcloth Pavilion from the Donglin County branch, he had a bet with the disciples of the Six Directions Spirit region, and they won in the end. At that time, Leng Shiqi had not participated in the Blood Seed plan, so he used this name. Perhaps the people of the Liuhe spiritual region suddenly discovered that there was such a name on the Flying Dragon leaderboard, and suspected that he was from the Blood Cloak Pavilion, so they went to inquire about it. Leng Shiqi thought so, but Eunuch Gao's next words made his heart sink. Not only the Six Directions spiritual region, but the mysterious Nether Temple is also investigating this person. The Netherworld Temple of the Yin and Yang Temples, one of the most mysterious forces on the Starfall continent. They were also inquiring about the Leng Shiqi. Is it finally here? Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Back then, when he had displayed the Ghost God's sword during the world's first Spirit Cultivator conference, some people had guessed that he might have come from the Nether Temple. The reason why Leng Shiqi did this was firstly to get on the Flying Dragon list, and secondly to lure out the Nether Temple. Now, it seemed that the other party had taken the bait. Leng Shiqi had never forgotten that he still had the bloodline of the Dark Shadow clan in his body, and the Dark Shadow clan was inextricably linked to the Nether Temple. After awakening the bloodline of the Star clan, he had obtained great benefits, so he coveted the bloodline of the Dark Shadow clan. Unfortunately, he did not know how to awaken the bloodline, nor did he know how to find the Nether Temple, so he could only use a more passive method. However, he was puzzled as to why he had not received any similar information. He asked, "Master, this is a serious matter. Why don't we report it to the commander?" "I have the same idea. If this matter was reported to the commander, Heavenly Master He Yen, then Heavenly Master He Yen would definitely report it to his soul avatar. Whether it was the Six Directions spiritual region or the Nether Temple, they were both thorns in the flesh of the Thunderblaze dynasty, so they had to be careful when dealing with them. In this way, Leng Shiqi could know the progress of this information at any time." After sending Eunuch Gao away, Leng Shiqi continued to recuperate. A few days later, he stood in front of the door of Xingji Pavilion and looked at the group of people in front of him with surprise. He did not expect that 70% of the people would be willing to follow him to the Western Desolate Province. One had to know that although Leng Shiqi was leaving, Xingji Pavilion still had to operate normally. At least 30% of the people were needed to support it. In other words, other than those who were essential, everyone was willing to follow him. Leng Shiqi did not expect himself to have such great appeal. These people had not been with him for long, the longest being He Fei Chun and Old Huang's group. In total, they had only been with him for 1 or 2 years. In fact, Leng Shiqi knew that the reason why they were willing to leave was not because they were loyal to him, but because of the benefits in future. He did not care how greedy his subordinates were, or rather, the more they liked benefits, the more they would work hard. With these people following him to the western desolate province, no matter what he did, they would be very useful. Of course, he was happy to do so. Lung Shiqi and the group exchanged pleasantries for a while, and then prepared to set off. They did not have any special mission, so they did not use the interdomain teleportation formation, and could only walk slowly to the western desolate province. Fortunately, it was not as slow as the previous diplomatic group. On the contrary, these people were all experts and had some storage space on them, so their speed was not slow. It was estimated that they would reach the western desolate province in a little more than a month. These few days, the things that could be dealt with were more or less settled. The only thing left was to go to the Zhuge family and release a few experts. There was no other way. Lung Shiqi's injuries were not healed yet, so he did not feel at ease going to the Zhuge family like this. Moreover, he was in the limelight now. The entire Thunderfire dynasty was paying attention to him, so it was not good for him to sneak in. This matter could only wait for the limelight to pass. The journey was calm and peaceful. When they reached the western desolate province, they did not go to the western desolate city. Generally speaking, his mansion was located in the western desolate city, but Lung Shiqi did not choose this place. Instead, he had people build a mansion in a special place. That was the place with the densest spirit chi in the western desolate province, the spirit-sealing Wonderland Valley. This place was very magical. The spirit chi within 1,000 miles of it was very thin. Only in the valley, the spirit chi was abnormally abundant, which was why it was named. Although the spirit chi was dense here, the strange thing was that there were no spirit cultivator sects established here. It was only because there were 2 spirit cultivators living in seclusion here. Spirit cultivators of the Sky Origin realm. These 2 were rogue cultivators. Since 100 years ago, they had been living in seclusion here. Naturally, no one dared to establish a sect here. However, Lung Shiqi had taken a liking to this place at first glance. His imperial residence wasn't just an imperial residence. He wanted to nurture it as a force. He must have an abundance of spiritual energy. On this day, Lung Shiqi brought many experts under his command to the spirit-sealing Wonderland Valley. Just as they approached, an old and deep voice came from afar. "Who are you?" Lung Shiqi cupped his fists towards the void and said, "I am Lu Xingji. I am here to be Senior's neighbor." Chapter 809. There were 2 thatched huts in the spirit-sealing Strange Valley. A hunchbacked old man and an old woman walked out of the 2 thatched huts. The hunchbacked old man looked out of the valley with an unnatural expression. "Where did this brat come from? He doesn't know his limits," the old woman said unhappily. "Little Lotus, I'm afraid we have quite a bit of trouble this time. Look, there are more than a dozen Unity of Heaven Realm cultivators outside. The young man leading them is even at the peak of the Unity of Heaven Realm. I can see that his aura is extraordinary, so his identity must be extraordinary. I just don't know what their goal is," the old man analyzed. "Who cares what their goal is? If they know what's good for them, leave quickly. If not, we'll beat them until they know what's good for them." The old woman called Little Lotus did not seem to have a good temper. Outside the valley, Lung Shiqi saw that there was no movement inside. He lifted his foot and was about to walk in. Behind him, Renyi immediately shouted, "My lord, there are 2 Heaven Realm cultivators inside. We can't take the risk." "It's fine. I'll go and ask for some advice." Lung Shiqi casually waved his hand and moved his feet into the spirit-sealing Strange Valley. However, at that moment, a few blood-red lotus flowers descended from the sky. In the blink of an eye, the snow lotus petals danced. Each lotus petal contained an astonishing amount of blood fiend energy and heaven-earth essence energy. A show of strength? Lung Shiqi's expression did not change. He slashed out with the 1,000 illusion Dao sword in his hand. Countless sword chi constantly condensed. The sword chi condensed into sword threads. The threads intertwined like thousands of brilliant flowers blooming. The sky was filled with beautiful flowers. These flowers were not disorderly. Instead, they were arranged according to a strange pattern. He actually formed a sword array in an instant. In the next instant, the countless sword threads exploded with all kinds of strange sword chi. They swept across the 9 prefectures. There were many strange phenomena that dazzled the eyes. This was Leng Shiqi's ultimate sword array, sword chi, and illusion technique, dazzling flowers. The snow lotuses were swept away by the dazzling flowers in an instant. They were utterly defeated. A surprised voice came from midair. Leng Shiqi raised his head and saw an old woman floating in the air with a surprised expression on her face. Although she had casually launched that attack, she was a Sky Origin stage cultivator after all. She had planned to use it to scare Leng Shiqi off, but it had been easily neutralized. This kid is indeed not simple. However, the ferocious glint in the old woman's eyes grew even brighter. Her 5 fingers clawed downwards, and in an instant, a sea of blood appeared. Countless lotuses floated within the sea of blood, making it look extremely demonic. Roar! Several dragon roars suddenly resounded through the heavens and earth. Leng Shiqi's back was ablaze with flames as 9 golden fire dragons spiraled into the sky. The blazing aura filled the entire spirit-sealing magical valley. It burned the spiritual energy, the elemental energy of heaven and earth, the blood sea, everything. Under the scorching heat of the crimson gold earth dragon flame, more than half of the sea of blood was instantly evaporated. The old woman frowned this time. She was just about to get serious, but she did not expect her sea of blood to be so easily neutralized. At this moment, an old man appeared beside her. He said, "That is the crimson gold earth dragon flame. It is very effective against your blood lotuses. Even my green bamboo sword can't deal with it. No matter how effective it is only at the unity of heaven and man stage." Old man Green Bamboo, are you afraid? Green Bamboo sighed. This guy knows that we are here, but he still came alone. This kind of person is either a fool or has enough strength. Now that you have tested him, why don't you listen to what he wants? No, I haven't tested him enough. If he can really take one of my attacks, then he is qualified to sit down and talk. As soon as the old woman finished speaking, the powerful aura of a Sky Origin stage cultivator suddenly came crashing down. She was finally serious. The elemental energy of heaven and earth within a radius of several thousand feet was stirred up. There was even a howling wind and a faint trace of blood. The old woman formed a seal with both hands. Demonic blood lotuses bloomed one after another. They were extremely beautiful, but they were filled with killing intent. Countless blood lotuses condensed to form a fist-sized bead. Leng Shiqi's expression froze. He could feel an extremely powerful energy from the bead. Boom! Leng Shiqi instantly turned into a demon with 6 arms and 2 wings. He looked ferocious and terrifying. However, his body immediately shone with a blinding Buddhist light. 1 thought of evil, 1 year of Buddha. After being refined by the blood beasts and absorbing the power of the 2 demons, Leng Shiqi integrated the indestructible Vajra body into it. This was the indestructible, evil Buddha body. The old woman's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She flicked her finger, and the blood-colored pearl trembled. Then, layers of lotus petals appeared. It was like a lotus flower that had just bloomed. Every time the lotus flower bloomed, heaven and earth would gently tremble. The lotus flower grew brighter and brighter, as if it was about to explode. Leng Shiqi was sure that if the lotus flower was allowed to explode, the entire Fengling Qi Valley would be razed to the ground. He clasped his hands together with a solemn expression. Immediately, a Buddhist light shone and a Buddha Dharma idol stood behind him. Leng Shiqi slammed his palm down. The origin energy of heaven and earth solidified, and a Buddha palm appeared above the 9 heavens. At the same time, Buddhist lotuses appeared in the sky and floated continuously, purifying all the filth in the world. The 9 dragons appeared again, and climbed on top of the Buddha Dharma idol. The Buddha palm was ignited with a layer of golden flames. Vairocana dragon flame palm. The old woman had already put away all her contempt. Her heart was trembling. At this time, she already regarded Leng Shiqi as an opponent of the same level. However, just as the 2 of them were about to fight, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared between them. It was a fat spirit cultivator. As soon as he appeared, he shouted, "Stop, all of you stop! Little Chu, why are you here? How dare you attack me? After Little Lotus recognized the person, he immediately burst out shouting. When Leng Shiqi saw that person, he immediately recognized him as his master Wu Xiang. Of course, he could also be called Chu Hezheng. He guessed that Wu Xiang had been waiting for him in the Western Desolate Province since he left the capital. When he entered the Western Desolate Province, he did not hide his whereabouts. Instead, he came to the Fenglingqi Valley openly. Naturally, Wu Xiang could find him here. Wu Xiang's purpose was none other than the Bloodrobe Pavilion. Leng Shiqi gave up the Dark Thunder Guard commander and left the capital. This was not good for the Bloodrobe Pavilion. Presumably, the Bloodrobe Pavilion also realized that they could no longer control Leng Shiqi, so they must have sent Wu Xiang to sound him out first. However, Leng Shiqi did not know that Wu Xiang was acquainted with these two Heaven Origin Stage cultivators. Wu Xiang shook his head and laughed. Senior Qingzhu, Senior Lotus, this is all a misunderstanding. This Lu Xingji is my disciple. Your disciple? Qingzhu and Red Lotus had a look of disbelief. Wu Xiang had broken through to the Heaven Origin Stage not long ago. Leng Shiqi was now at the peak of the unity of Heaven and Man realm. In other words, when Wu Xiang was at the unity of Heaven and Man realm, he already had a disciple at the same level. How was this possible? Chapter 8:10. Wu Xiang said, "It's true. We're family, we're all family." After saying that, he gave Leng Shiqi a meaningful look. Leng Shiqi understood and bowed to Wu Xiang. Disciple greets master. The word master was not to be used casually. Seeing Leng Shiqi really bowing, the two elders were skeptical. Wu Xiang quickly said, "Senior Red Lotus, please retract your technique. Why don't we sit down and talk?" The old woman hesitated. "All right, this kid is very strong. He's not weaker than those who just entered the Heaven Origin Stage. He's qualified." Then she retracted her hand seal, and the terrifying blood lotus slowly dissipated. Leng Shiqi also retracted his Virokana dragon flame palm. Soon, the four of them gathered in the thatched hut in the valley. The two elders sat on one side, Leng Shiqi sat opposite them, and Wu Xiang sat on the other side. Red Lotus looked unhappy and did not seem to want to talk. The elder called Qingzhu coughed and said, "Little friend Lu, I'll be frank. Why did you come to the Spirit Sealing Valley?" "I've said it from the beginning. I want to be neighbors with the two elders." Leng Shiqi had his eyes on the Spirit Sealing Valley. He wanted to build the Western Baron Royal Residence here, so he would definitely offend the two Heaven Origin Stage cultivators. Originally, he wanted to use his strength and identity to intimidate them. He was not bragging. If he used his full strength, he might not be able to kill them, but he would definitely win. Now that Formless had interfered, and from the looks of it, they seemed to have some sort of relationship, things would be easier to handle. Leng Shiqi also changed his mind slightly. "Neighbor?" Qingzhu was puzzled. "You mean you've taken a fancy to the Spirit Sealing Wonderland?" "That's right. I want to build the Western Baron Royal Residence here." Leng Shiqi told them his plan and identity. The two elders had been through a lot, but they were still shocked when they heard Leng Shiqi's identity. "You're one of the four chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards of the Thunderfire Dynasty, and a prince with a different surname?" Although they were rogue cultivators and didn't know much about the outside world, they were still able to recognize their identities. Leng Shiqi's current status was enough for him to look down on the Thunderflame dynasty. Even in the eyes of the Heaven Origin region, he was not someone to be trifled with. What's more, Leng Shiqi's strength was extraordinary. Vaguely, he made the two elders feel a trace of fear. Of course, it was only a sliver. No matter how great the officials of the Thunderfire dynasty were, they could not control them. The old woman immediately said with displeasure, "The two of us are used to living in this Sealing Spirit Bizarre Valley. We can't let you build a mansion here, let alone leave. Leave quickly. I won't hold it against you for little Chu's sake." Leng Shiqi's heart flashed coldly. When they fought just now, he could almost feel that this old woman's strength was slightly weaker than Zhong Zhenliang's group. On the other hand, the Green Bamboo Elder didn't make a move, which made him a little confused. At this time, Wu transmitted his voice, "Disciple, This red lotus was from the Blood Lotus demonic sect in the six-path demon realm. That green bamboo is a rogue cultivator. They are both at the Heaven Origin middle stage. When I was at the Unity of World stage, I also went into seclusion here for a period of time. Don't be fooled by Red Lotus's poisonous mouth. She's cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Thanks to the two elders' help and guidance, I was able to break through to the Heaven Origin stage. However, it won't be easy for you to build a mansion here because they have no desires. No matter if you threaten or bribe them, it won't work. So that's how it is. No wonder Wu Xiang was at the Heaven Origin stage and still called the two elders. At the time, Leng Shiqi felt it was a bit strange and thought that Wu Xiang had a close relationship with them. However, he still didn't believe that people would have no desires. The reason why they acted like this was because there was nothing worth drawing out their desires. Then Leng Shiqi took out a stone. It looked like a very ordinary stone. However, when he put the stone on the table, green bamboo, red lotus, and Wu Xiang all stared at the stone. In fact, it was just an ordinary stone. However, Leng Shiqi had attached a trace of the law of earth to it. Hiss, the aura of the law of heaven and earth. Red Lotus gasped. She didn't hide her emotions and exclaimed. Qing Zhu stood up, and a hint of excitement appeared on her face. As for Wu Xiang, his eyes moved back and forth between the stone and Leng Shiqi. No one knew what he was thinking. Leng Shiqi picked up the stone and said, Elders, I don't need to explain the use and value of this stone. I'm willing to exchange it for the Spirit Sealing Valley. What do you think? There weren't many Heaven Origin stage cultivators on the Falling Star continent. There were only a few hundred of them. Among them, only a very small number of people were passionate about pursuing power. What the rest of the people wanted the most was power. Every Heaven Origin stage cultivator wanted to find a way to break through to Tongxian stage. In other words, they wanted to understand the law of heaven and earth. However, there were very few people who could succeed. Most people didn't even have a clue when they reached the end of their lifespan. The stone in Leng Shiqi's hand was like a lighthouse, a shortcut. Even if they didn't cultivate the law of earth, they could at least understand the law of heaven and earth. This was a huge step forward for them. How could the two elders not be moved? Green Bamboo looked at Leng Shiqi and said, Young man, you haven't reached Heaven Origin stage yet. Perhaps you don't know the true value of this stone. Are you really willing to exchange it for the Spirit Sealing Valley? Although the Spirit Sealing Valley is full of spiritual energy, there are a few places in the West Baron Prefecture that aren't much worse than here. With your status, you can easily get it. You better think it through. This junior has already thought it through. I just don't know what the two seniors mean. The two old men looked at each other. The spiritual energy in the Sealing Spirit Wondrous Valley was of no use to them. They were only used to living here because they found it pleasing to the eye. However, the stone that Leng Shiqi took out was a hope for them. A hope to break through to Tongxian stage. Who was more important, and who was more important? Red Lotus nodded and said, I didn't expect you to take out such a treasure. A small spirit sealing valley can't compare to this. This old woman will take it away. I owe you a favor. With that, she waved her hand and put away the stone. Then she left with Green Bamboo. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but be stunned. This Red Lotus was really straightforward. Not only did he exchange a stone for the Spirit Sealing Valley, he also earned a favor from a Heaven Origin stage cultivator. This was a good deal. Then he gave the order and many spirit cultivators began to prepare to build the king's mansion. Wu Xiang's expression was solemn as he said, Disciple, you've made things very difficult for me this time. Chapter 8:11. Leng Shiqi knew that Wu Xiang was not talking about the Sealing Spirit Strange Valley, but the Bloodcloth Pavilion. He could guess that the Bloodcloth Pavilion was dissatisfied with him. Disciple, I have no other intentions this time. I just want to ask you on behalf of the sect. What are your plans? Wu Xiang went straight to the point and asked without beating around the bush. Master, you should know me. No matter what I do, I have my own ideas, Leng Shiqi explained. There are 3 reasons why I chose to leave the imperial capital this time. First, I am too famous in the Dark Thunder Guards and even in the imperial capital. I don't know how many people already dislike me. This is not what worries me the most. More importantly, Lei Haoyan is starting to be wary of me. If I continue to stay in the imperial capital, I will only fall into endless power struggles. Although I am not afraid, it will only delay my cultivation. It would be better to withdraw in time and nurture his own forces here. Second, I left a foundation in the western desolate province, and there are many disciples of the Bloodcloth Pavilion here. Now that I am back, the Sealing Spirit Strange Valley is in the northern county. We can cultivate the disciples of the Bloodcloth Pavilion here, and turn the Sealing Spirit Strange Valley into another Bloodcloth Pavilion. This is equivalent to leaving a way out for the sect. Even if the Bloodseed plan fails in the end, it will not be completely destroyed. At least there will still be a spark. As for the third, I am just a chess piece in the Bloodseed plan. The others have not grown up yet, so there is no need to rush. After he finished speaking, Wu Xiang fell into deep thought. The reason Leng Shiqi did this was, of course, not as good as he said. He was doing this for himself. This Fenglingqi Valley was in the North County. He still had the title of North County's Great Supervisor. In the future, he planned to move the Dark Thunder Guards of the North County to the Western Wasteland King's Mansion, and slowly run the King's Mansion. It might even become a force not weaker than the Bloodcloth Pavilion. Of course, that was in the future. Now that everything had settled down, he could do the thing he had been preparing for a long time. Even if these words can convince me, they might not be able to convince the Pavilion Master and the others. Master advises you to be more careful. Wu Xiang was silent for a while before he said with some worry. He knew very well that Leng Shiqi's words were mostly empty words. If he went back with these words, the higher-ups of the Blood Garment Pavilion would not be satisfied. Don't worry, I know what to do. Forget it, forget it. I know you're a person with a sense of propriety. I'll go back and report. After sending Wu Xiang away, Leng Shiqi began to build the palace. In addition to the people he brought, Yu Ruifeng, the inspector of the Western Baron Prefecture, also sent a large number of people over. It had only been 10 days or so, but a magnificent mansion had already begun to take shape. Furthermore, the Leng Shiqi had also sent out invitations, inviting all the powers in the West Desolation Province, including the Azure Thunder Army, the various cities, high officials and nobles, the Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Division, and various large and small spirit cultivator sects to be guests at the West Desolation Palace in a month's time. In fact, there was no need for him to invite them. There were countless people who wanted to visit him. When the Leng Shiqi was about to occupy the West Desolation Province, many people gathered in the West Desolation City to pay a visit to this prince with a different surname. But who would have thought that he did not go to the West Desolation City at all, but came to the Northern County's spirit-sealing Wonderland Valley? The news that there were 2 Sky Origin stage experts living in seclusion here was not a big secret. Anyone with some intelligence channels knew about it. At first, they were very puzzled as to why Leng Shiqi would come here. The result shocked them greatly. Leng Shiqi had built a mansion in the spirit-sealing Wonderland Valley. Building a mansion was not a rare thing, but the key was, where were the 2 Sky Origin stage experts? They were living in seclusion here, so how could they easily change places? But Leng Shiqi could occupy the spirit-sealing Wonderland Valley and invite guests, which meant that he had already dealt with the 2 Sky Origin stage experts. No matter what method he used, just this matter alone was enough to shock many people. A month later, the West Desolation King's Mansion was officially built. The main style was majestic. Due to the lack of time, some details could not be filled in, and could only be added slowly in the future. Leng Shiqi also brought a few array masters from the imperial capital. They had already set up a few arrays in several important places in the mansion. As for those large-scale and high-level arrays, they could not be set up in a short period of time. Right now they were barely enough. On this day, spirit cultivators from all over the world gathered in the spirit-sealing Wonderland Valley. One by one, people with prominent identities arrived. The leaders of the few first-rate sects in the West Desolation Province were all present. Not a single city lord was missing. These people knew each other and naturally chatted with each other. The entire mansion was bustling with noise and excitement. At this time someone shouted from outside, Let's welcome the Azure Thunder Army's commander, Xiaoba. Xiaoba. Hearing this name, everyone in the prince's mansion was stunned. The West Desolation province was the western border of the Thunderblaze dynasty. The Azure Thunder Army was stationed here to guard the border. This was one of the trump cards of the Thunderblaze dynasty. Their commander, Xiaoba, was an expert at the peak of the Sky Origin realm. He had been overseeing the West Desolation province for over 100 years, and no one dared to offend him. Therefore, Xiaoba had never left the border, and had never participated in any grand events. But today, he actually personally came to the West Desolation King's mansion. Everyone looked in the direction of the gate, wanting to meet this legendary marshal. They saw a tall man dressed in tattered beast skin. His entire body exuded a wild aura as he walked over. In his hand was a jug of strong wine. Before he even got close, they could already smell the strong smell of wine. Leng Shiqi went up to welcome such an important person. Commander Xiahou, it's an honor to meet you. Xiaoba raised his head and gulped down a large mouthful of wine. All right, let's skip the formalities. I have other matters to discuss with you today. But since I'm here, I will abide by the rules. You go ahead and do what you need to do. We'll catch up after you're done. Leng Shiqi could not figure out Xiaoba's thoughts. But since he came to the West Desolation province, he would have to deal with him sooner or later. Commander Xiahou is indeed straightforward. Please come in. Then, he immediately sent people to gather all the information about Xiaoba. When almost everyone had arrived, he walked up to the high platform in the middle of the mansion. All the spirit cultivators in the mansion immediately quieted down. Leng Shiqi looked up and saw that there were over 10,000 people in the crowd. Among them, there were many powerful and prominent people. Ringyi took out the Imperial Edict and read it again. Then, whether it was the commander of the Scarlet Thunder Army, Xiaoba, or someone from a third-rate sect, they all cupped their hands and shouted in unison. Greetings, Your Highness. Chapter 8:12. Leng Shiqi stretched out his hands and said indifferently, Everyone is a guest from afar, please take a seat. Everyone immediately sat down. Of course, not everyone had the qualifications to sit down. In fact, 70% of the spirit cultivators were still standing. They also wanted to know what Leng Shiqi wanted to do. He was the king of the Western Desolation, so it was normal for everyone to visit him. However, it was rare for Leng Shiqi to make such a big fuss. Now that the king's mansion had not been completed, he must have some plans for gathering everyone in such a hurry. In private, everyone was secretly guessing Leng Shiqi's purpose, but they were not certain. Leng Shiqi paused for a moment and said, Today, I have invited everyone here to announce one thing. Everyone held their breaths, wanting to know what he would announce. From today onwards, I am the king of the Western Desolation province. Hearing this, most people were puzzled. Leng Shiqi was originally the king of the Western Desolation. Didn't he just announce the Imperial Edict? But the more everyone thought about it, the more they felt that there was something wrong with this sentence. Then many people immediately shivered. Leng Shiqi said to become the king of the Western Desolation province, not the king of the Western Desolation. King of the Western Desolation. This was an extremely high status. There were not many people in the world who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. But then again, the status of the prince was high, but he did not have any real power. You could have the power to cultivate your own power, but you could not command the big shots in the Western Desolation province. For example, Xiaoba, the Dark Thunder Guards, and the people in charge of the Discipline Division. And Leng Shiqi's words just now were to completely control the entire Western Desolation province. If it was just his own thoughts, then so be it. Who would be so ambitious? He actually dared to say such words in front of all the influential people in the West Desolate Prefecture. He was not afraid of provoking public anger, not afraid of being condemned in speech and writing, not afraid of being punished by His Majesty. Even if Leng Shiqi was also one of the 4 directors of the Dark Thunder Guards, he was in charge of the eastern 9 counties, and his hands could not reach the Western Desolation province. How audacious of him! The commander of the Azure Thunder Army, Xiaoba, was sitting right there. If he angered Leng Shiqi, he would not be kind to Leng Shiqi. Everyone quietly glanced at Xiaoba. Everyone knew that this person had a fiery temper. How could he be as insolent as Leng Shiqi? However, they saw that Xiaoba was drinking as if nothing had happened, as if he had not heard Leng Shiqi's words at all. Everyone was dumbfounded. He even thought that he had seen wrongly. This is Xiaoba? Leng Shiqi was also secretly observing Xiaoba. Among the people present, only Xiaoba was worthy of his attention. Xiaoba's reaction was beyond Leng Shiqi's expectations. The more Xiaoba reacted this way, the more suspicious Leng Shiqi became. He wondered what Xiaoba's purpose in coming to Spirit Sealing Bizarre Valley was. Xiaoba was the strongest and had the highest status among all of them. Now that he pretended not to hear, who would say something? At this time, Yu Ruifeng, the inspector of the Dark Thunder Guards of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, stood up. The others thought that he would refute, but who would have thought that he would say, "Your Highness has been appointed to the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Naturally, you have to take over everything here. I don't care about others, but everyone in the Dark Thunder Guards of the Western Wilderness Prefecture is at your disposal." As early as a month ago, Eunuch Gao had already contacted Yu Ruifeng. He only told him that seeing Leng Shiqi was like seeing Eunuch Gao himself. No matter what Leng Shiqi did, he had to obey him. As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Yu Ruifeng's decision made everyone feel like they had betrayed him. At this time, they realized that something was wrong. Just now, they subconsciously thought that no one here would yield to Leng Shiqi. There were even a few masters of the oneness of heaven and men realm who were eager to make a move. However, the situation did not develop in the direction they expected. First, Xiaoba did not care. Then Yu Ruifeng surrendered. The rest of the people suddenly felt like they were scattered sand. Then the major sects, families, and city lords of the northern county all stood up and said, "We are willing to follow your highness." The others could not help but widen their eyes. If the word follow spread to the imperial capital, it would be a serious crime. This could not be blamed. The main reason was that Leng Shiqi's influence in the northern county was too great, or it could be said that it was too terrifying. Last time, when Leng Shiqi came to welcome the envoy, he had already bribed the major forces in the northern county. Now it came in handy. The only ones who did not speak were the Discipline Commission and the forces of the eastern, western, and southern counties. Until now they still couldn't understand. Were those people who defected all crazy? When the people in the imperial capital and His Majesty knew about this, they would definitely be furious. At that time, all those who surrendered would not have a good ending. When Leng Shiqi saw that these people were still hesitating, his face immediately turned cold. "I advise everyone to be more open-minded. You won't be at a disadvantage if you follow me. Otherwise, I'm afraid that this western desolate province will become a bloodbath. Unfortunately, I don't know how long it will take for the Western Wilderness County to return to its current prosperity." When everyone heard this, their hearts skipped a beat. Leng Shiqi dared to threaten them so blatantly. He really did not care about them, nor did he care about His Majesty. The king of the Western Wilderness is so powerful. Just when everyone did not know what to do, a figure broke through the air and said sarcastically, "Who is that? He must be an expert of the Sky Origin stage. I have some impression. He seems to be an expert of the Lioha spiritual region. Why is someone from the Lioha spiritual region here?" When Leng Shiqi saw the person, he narrowed his eyes and recognized him. This person was Elder Shao, who had brought the disciples of the Lioha spiritual region to the Blood Cloak Pavilion to participate in the gambling match. What was he doing here? "It's only been a few years since we parted. I didn't expect you to be so famous. I wonder if the king of the Western Wilderness still recognizes me?" Elder Shao asked with a cold smile. In the eyes of others, Elder Shao seemed to be an old friend of Leng Shiqi. However, these words were undoubtedly a threat to Leng Shiqi. In the world, the only people who knew his true identity, other than the Blood Cloak Pavilion, were those who had participated in the gambling match. However, Leng Shiqi's appearance had changed greatly after the gambling match. He even hid his identity and joined the Dark Thunder Guards. How did Elder Shao know that he was the king of the Western Wilderness? Leng Shiqi immediately thought of a possibility, and it was very likely. This news was leaked by the Blood Cloak Pavilion. When Six Direction Spirit Sovereign broke into the palace, Leng Shiqi had delayed him for a short period of time. Presumably, Six Direction Spirit Sovereign had already held a grudge against him. The Blood Cloak Pavilion leaked his identity to the Six Direction Spirit region, because they wanted to use the Six Direction Spirit region to threaten him. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, "It seems that the words that Master brought back are useless. However, the Blood Cloak Pavilion is really bold. Aren't they afraid that the people of the Six Direction Spirit region will really expose my identity?" The Six Direction Spirit region and the Blood Cloak Pavilion had secretly reached some kind of agreement. Therefore, it was almost impossible for the Six Direction Spirit region to expose Leng Shiqi's identity. However, they could use this information to threaten and control Leng Shiqi. Seeing that Leng Shiqi did not speak, Elder Shao snorted coldly and said, "We haven't seen each other for a long time. What should I call you now? The king of the Western Wilderness, Lu Xingji or Leng Shiqi?" The crowd immediately buzzed with discussion. If Elder Shao was not speaking without thinking, then the king of the Western Wilderness's identity did not seem to be that simple. Leng Shiqi turned his head, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The crowd instantly fell silent. He suddenly smiled brightly and said, "Very well, this king wants to announce the second thing. From today onwards, my name is Leng Shiqi." Chapter 8:13. Inside the king's mansion. Whether it was Leng Shiqi's subordinates or anyone else, they were all stunned. Elder Shao of the Six Directions spiritual region was the same. Other than Elder Shao, everyone else was baffled. The king of the Western Wilderness, one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards, had changed his name in front of so many people? Wasn't this too much of a joke? Of course, they soon realized that Elder Shao had suddenly appeared here, and made the king of the Western Wilderness change his name without saying a word. There must be something fishy going on. Xiaoba put down the wine jar and looked at Leng Shiqi for a while before continuing to drink. Elder Shao, who was still flying in the air, opened his mouth. He had a lot of words that he wanted to say, but they were forcefully swallowed back. He thought that Leng Shiqi might change the topic, shamelessly or directly attack him. But he never thought that Leng Shiqi would admit it in front of him. No, he didn't seem to admit anything. He only said that he changed his name. Although many people would be suspicious if he changed his name, it was much better than being pestered by the Six Directions spiritual region. At this moment, Elder Shao had to admit that Leng Shiqi was very shrewd, and could also be said to be treacherous. He knew how to use the best method to solve problems. He simply changed his name in front of everyone, and it could be said that the Six Directions spiritual region had something on him. This was because Elder Shao knew very well that he couldn't expose Leng Shiqi's identity. Therefore, Elder Shao felt a little embarrassed. His purpose was to beat Leng Shiqi and gain some benefits, but now he had no reason to do so. What should he do next? Leng Shiqi raised his head and smiled. "Elder Shao is a guest from afar. Why don't we have a few drinks and catch up?" Elder Shao said with a gloomy expression. "Leng Shiqi, don't think you can get away with it." "Elder Shao, I'm afraid you'll return empty-handed this time." "What a pity." Leng Shiqi didn't give the other party any face. Elder Shao had a good temper, but at this moment, he still wanted to kill Leng Shiqi. In the end, he held back. Leng Shiqi was the key to the Blood Garment Pavilion's Blood Seed plan. Before the relationship between the Sixth Unity spiritual realm and the Blood Garment Pavilion broke off, he could not touch Leng Shiqi. However, he could avoid the death penalty, but he couldn't escape punishment. Elder Shao took a step forward, and a figure appeared behind him. That figure was like an ancient god, tearing apart the sky with its hands and crushing the earth with its feet. When it landed, the sky was filled with flashing lights. Everyone in the Wang mansion had no choice but to close their eyes. Even so, they still felt like they were being pierced by thousands of swords. Rinyi made a quick decision and activated the array in the palace. However, the array was newly built. How could it withstand the power of the sky origin stage? Even the slightest ripple was enough to shatter all the arrays in an instant. Leng Shiqi snorted in his heart. Elder Shao should not have made a move in front of everyone, because it would leave an impression of arrogance in everyone's hearts. These people were all well-known figures in the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Even if their strength was far inferior to the Six Unity Spiritual Realm, the Six Unity Spiritual Realm's reputation in the Western Wilderness Prefecture would be ruined. Leng Shiqi spread the star moon wings on his back and soared into the sky. Four arms grew out of his back and formed a seal at the same time. Immediately, the wind and clouds surged, huge waves surged, raging flames surged, and the earth shook. The wind tiger tore open the sky, the water dragon soared into the sky, the fire phoenix spread its wings and circled, and the black tortoise broke out of the ground. Leng Shiqi formed a series of seals one after another. Suddenly, there was a mysterious rhythm between heaven and earth, and the origin energy of heaven and earth boiled. Then the wind tiger, the water dragon, the fire phoenix, and the black tortoise gathered together, forming a formation that covered the sky. The Four Spirits Formation. As soon as the Four Spirits Formation appeared, the origin energy of heaven and earth within a radius of hundreds of miles was instantly absorbed. Traces of an even more mysterious aura filled the air. That was the power of law. The Four Spirits Formation slowly pressed down. Before Elder Shao could retract his shocked expression, the figure behind him had already dimmed a little. The divine light that filled the sky was completely extinguished, and not a single bit was left. This is impossible. Elder Shao shouted in horror. How can you, who is in the unity of heaven and man realm, control such a powerful force? He did not dare to believe it because the power of the Four Spirits Formation had exceeded the range of what he could bear. In other words, Leng Shiqi was even stronger than him. He was an expert in the sky origin stage. Although he was only in the early stage of the sky origin stage, he was still in the sky origin stage. However, at this moment, Elder Shao was helpless against the Four Spirits Formation. The result he was about to see was defeat. Elder Shao naturally could not wait for death. He reached out and clenched his fist. Endless divine light burst out in the air, and a divine eye vaguely appeared. A ray of green light shot out from the divine eye. The green light looked very ordinary, but it contained an extremely terrifying amount of heaven and earth origin energy. The green light collided with the Four Spirits Formation, and a sudden sound came from the sky. Everyone only saw the Four Spirits Formation shake violently, but the green light disappeared without a trace. Elder Shao's face was a little red. That was his last spiritual skill. Unless he burned his blood essence again, he would not be able to use any more power. He could also see that if he burned his blood essence, he still had some confidence in blocking the Four Spirits Formation. Facing a junior in the unity of heaven and man realm, he had to burn his blood essence to barely block a blow. From now on, Elder Shao, would lose all face. How would he face others in the future? There were many experts among the spirit cultivators below. They could all see that Elder Shao was in a great disadvantage. Leng Shiqi's strength had completely exceeded their imagination. He said that he wanted to be the king of the Western Desolate Province, so he did have the confidence. At this time, Leng Shiqi's forearms paused. The Four Spirits Formation that suppressed all things dissipated in the blink of an eye. He was not prepared to continue attacking, because he had already achieved what he wanted. Elder Shao's expression froze. And then his chest felt as if there was a big rock pressing down on it. Even though he did not have to worry about how to block the Four Spirits Formation, Leng Shiqi's actions were like telling the world that he had spared Elder Shao. A unity of heaven and man realm spared a sky origin realm. Elder Shao held back a mouthful of blood and almost spat it out. This was not even as good as losing a battle. He could foresee that no matter where he went in the future, people would think of the humiliation of being spared by a unity of heaven and man realm cultivator. This would be a stain on his life, a shame for the rest of his life. Since Elder Shao is not willing to come and drink a few cups, then I won't send you off. Please go back and help this king pass a message. Don't use this little trick anymore, it's embarrassing. Leng Shiqi continued to stab. Elder Shao, who had a good temper, was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. Good. He was so angry that he said 3 good words in a row. The king of the Western Desolate Province is so capable and awe-inspiring. My Lioha spirit region will remember today's matter. Goodbye. After leaving behind a ruthless sentence, Elder Xiao turned around and left, leaving behind many spirit cultivators who were still in a state of shock. Chapter 8:14. Even after Elder Xiao had completely disappeared, the spirit cultivators in the palace still hadn't recovered. Lung Shiqi had actually defeated Elder Xiao of the 6 Directions spiritual region. If it was in other realms, it wasn't particularly rare for the weak to defeat the strong, especially those spirit cultivators from the large sects who could occasionally do it. But that was the Sky Origin realm. It was a powerful existence that had already surpassed the 4 realms of heaven. How could this realm be crossed just because one wanted to? Moreover, Elder Xiao was not a rogue cultivator. He was an expert from the 4 sacred spiritual regions. Whether it was his strength or cultivation method, he was naturally the best. Even so, he was still defeated by Lung Shiqi in one move. Just how strong was Lung Shiqi? Many people couldn't help but gasp. The only person present who was still clear-headed was the commander of the Azure Thunder Army, Xiaoba. At this moment, he was staring at Lung Shiqi with burning eyes, wishing that he could see through him. Everyone, there was an outsider who disturbed us just now. Now I will give you one more chance. If you miss it, you will really miss it. Lung Shiqi's cold voice spread to every corner of the palace, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Immediately, 30 to 40% of the people knelt down to express their submission. In addition to those who had already submitted, the number of people who were willing to recognize Lung Shiqi as their king was now as high as 80%. The remaining 20% were people from a few first-rate sects and the Discipline Commission. The Discipline Commission was difficult to make. They were originally here to suppress the various spirit cultivators in the Western Desolate Province. If they all submitted to Lung Shiqi, then was there still a need for the Discipline Commission to exist? However, Lung Shiqi's ferocity was too strong. Not only was his strength extraordinary, but he also seemed to be somewhat disregarding the reaction of the imperial capital. It seemed that he had something to rely on, so the Discipline Commission also had the intention to bow their heads, but they really couldn't open their mouths. Lung Shiqi swept his gaze around and found a familiar face in the crowd of the Discipline Commission. He said, "Brother Wang, we haven't seen each other for a few years. I wonder if you still remember that you once owed me a favor." The person he was talking about was the Grand Commissioner of the Discipline Commission, Wang Tai. Lung Shiqi had spoken up for King Tai during the Monster Extermination Conference in the Wind and Thunder Watchtower, which earned him a favor. King Tai was called out. He looked at Lung Shiqi, who was standing high above, and felt a little absent-minded. When they were in the Wind and Thunder Tower, Wang Tai was in the Gang Spirit realm, and Lung Shiqi was in the Spiritual Aperture realm. However, he was still in the Gang Spirit realm, while Lung Shiqi had already reached the oneness of Heaven and Men realm. A Sky Origin stage cultivator, who could defeat a Sky Origin stage cultivator. He smiled bitterly and said, "I didn't expect your highness to still remember me. My cultivation is low, and my words carry little weight. I don't know how to repay this favor. You should know very well what I want," Lung Shiqi said with a smile. King Tai's expression became even more bitter. He naturally knew that Lung Shiqi wanted him to persuade the people of the Discipline Commission to lower their heads, but he was not the person in charge of the Discipline Commission in the Western Wilderness Commandery, so he could not make the decision. He turned his head and glanced at Chao Qingyuan, the Discipline Commissioner beside him. Chao Qingyuan did not say anything, but gave him a look. King Tai immediately understood that Chao Qingyuan had already prepared to lower his head. At this moment, he only needed a way out, and King Tai was the way out. He spoke in a low voice, but the people around could hear him clearly. "Lord Chao, I have an old friendship with His Highness, and he never does anything unprepared. Besides, everyone has seen his strength. We have no room to resist. As the saying goes, a fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. We'd better." King Tai shut his mouth after he finished speaking. Instead, he transmitted his voice. My lord, let's lower our heads for the time being and muddle our way through. I believe that the imperial capital will make a move soon. So, even if something happens, it won't be our fault. Chao Qingyuan pretended to ponder, then half knelt on the ground and lowered his head deeply. The Discipline Suppression Commission had also submitted. Now only a few first-class sects had not made a choice. Seeing that the Discipline Commission, which had been suppressing them, had surrendered, they felt a little better. We are willing to obey your highness. In the end, the people of those sects had no choice but to make a decision. At this moment, a large number of people in the prince's mansion had knelt down, which meant that the situation in the Western Desolation Prefecture had completely changed. Very good. I've prepared songs and dances for everyone. Drink to your heart's content and don't stop until you're drunk. Lung Shiqi clapped his hands and immediately, beautiful music started to play. Rows of beautiful female dancers started to dance gracefully, and the prince's mansion was instantly filled with singing and dancing. Xiaoba stretched his body and stood up. I'm tired of drinking this jar of wine. It's tasteless. I wonder if your highness has been here for a long time. Lung Shiqi's nose twitched. The smell of this jar of wine was very strong. Even he, who was in the unity of heaven and man realm, felt the smell of wine assailed his nostrils. He knew that Xiaoba was not here for the wine, but for the purpose of his visit. Although the prince's mansion has just been built, it still has good wine. Brother Xiao, please follow me. Lung Shiqi led Xiaoba to the main hall of the prince's mansion. Brother Xiao, please take a seat. Yilu. Should I call you Lu Xingji or Lung Shiqi? Since I've said it in front of everyone, you can call me Lung Shiqi. He did not care that Xiaoba suddenly called him by his name. Xiaoba leaned back in his chair and said casually, Well, Lung Shiqi, oh Lung Shiqi, I've heard of you by chance. It's better to meet you in person than to hear about you. Let's not talk about other things first. Your current strength is probably comparable to the middle stage of the Sky Origin realm. I admire you. It just so happens that I have a tricky problem in my hands. I need your highness's help. Finally, he got to the point. Lung Shiqi looked puzzled. I'm still a junior in front of Brother Xiao. If you have any orders, just say it. I'll do it as long as I can. Today, Xiaoba had given Lung Shiqi enough face from the beginning. Naturally, he would not be careless. The reason why he dared to agree was that he had his considerations. The most important thing was that Xiaoba did not know his strength when he came. In other words, Xiaoba originally planned to ask Lung Shiqi, who was in the unity of heaven and man stage, for help. Therefore, this problem should not be too troublesome. When Xiaoba saw that Lung Shiqi agreed so readily, he was first stunned. Then he clapped his hands. Ha ha ha, Brother Lung is so forthright. You're definitely my friend. In fact, it's not a big problem. It's just that there's something in Beilu country that I've been coveting for a long time. Due to my identity, I can't easily leave the Western Wilderness Prefecture. However, Brother Lung is different. You're the king of the Western Wilderness. You can go to the 6 countries of the Western regions openly. They'll open their doors to welcome you. At this point, Lung Shiqi finally understood that Xiaoba wanted to borrow Lung Shiqi's hand to get something from Beilu country. This thing must be extraordinary if it could catch the eye of Xiaoba, who was at the peak of the Sky Origin realm. May I ask what that thing is? Xiaoba said with a mysterious expression. It's an 8th rank martial art called 3 Talents Control Art. Chapter 8:15. Rank 8 Technique? Lung Shiqi was puzzled. Although rank 8 techniques were rare, they were powerful enough to break through to the Sky Origin realm. However, Xiaoba was already at the peak of the Sky Origin realm. Rank 8 techniques should be useless to him. He must be preparing to break through to the Tongxian realm. What he needed should be a rank 9 technique. However, Lung Shiqi thought about it again. Xiaoba naturally knew about this. Since he valued the 3 talents imperial technique so much, he must have his own plans. This was not difficult for Lung Shiqi. At most, he could use the name of the King of the West to go to the 6 kingdoms of the West and get the technique. This might attract some suspicion, but so what? Without conclusive evidence, The power of the Beilu kingdom would not dare to question the king of the Thunder Flame dynasty. Before that, he thought it would be better to ask more clearly. Brother Xiahou, can you tell me where the technique is and who has it? Xiaoba replied. There is a Huayu building in the Beilu kingdom. It is a force supported by the Beilu king. Its owner is called the Huayu Heavenly Master. He has a high prestige in that place. The main reason is that the Beilu kingdom is dry all year round. This Huayu Heavenly Master actually has the ability to summon wind and rain. In fact, some cultivators of the water element also have this ability. However, the water element in that place is very poor, and it is not easy to do so. The reason is that this person has cultivated the 3 talents imperial technique. In addition, the people of the Beilu kingdom are somewhat uncivilized. Many people think that he is some kind of god. The Beilu king will take advantage of the opportunity to build a Huayu building and receive a large number of offerings every year. Alas, if that Huayu Heavenly Master is only a rank 1 rogue cultivator, even if he is from a spirit cultivator sect, I can directly snatch the technique. Unfortunately, he is now relying on the Beilu kingdom. It is inconvenient for me to make a move. I see that Brother Lung's body contains a domineering force. If you can get the 3 talents imperial technique, I can teach you a fist technique. Before Xiaoba finished speaking, his domineering aura suddenly leaked out. A fist intent intimidated the world. He did not move a single step, but there was a terrifying pressure of an overlord descending upon the world. The sky above the Wangfu was suddenly covered in black clouds. Everyone felt as if their chests had been struck by a heavy hammer. Xiaoba had used his pair of iron fists to intimidate the 6 nations of the western regions for several decades. His self-created dominating Empyrean fist had killed countless experts. As for Lung Shiqi, as long as he brought the 3 talents control technique, he would be able to learn a fist technique. In particular, the tyrant fist that he had comprehended not long ago coincided with Xiaoba's fist intent. It was like someone had sent him a pillow when he was about to doze off. Moreover, he had originally planned to go to the 6 kingdoms of the western region some time later, so it was just a convenient thing to do. Lung Shiqi agreed without hesitation. I'll take it. However, there are still many things to prepare for in the mansion, so I can't go to Beilu Kingdom for the time being. Therefore, I need Xiaoba to wait for a few more days. Haha, don't worry about it. Seeing Lung Shiqi agree, Xiaoba immediately laughed heartily. I won't be wrong. Brother Lung must be a man of his words. Then I'll wait for your good news. The Wangfu of the Western Wasteland has just been built, and there are still many things to be done. I won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye. Brother Xiahou, please. Lung Shiqi saw Xiaoba off. Then he did not see anyone else but went to the specially built secret chamber. He murmured, "It's finally time to do that thing." At sunset, the people in the Wangfu of the Western Wasteland had almost all left. After this day, the situation in the Western Wasteland Prefecture had changed. However, some people thought that it would not change for long, because the news that Lung Shiqi wanted to dominate the Western Wasteland Prefecture had quickly spread to the imperial capital. Everyone who received this news could not believe it at first, and then they were furious. Especially those high-ranking courtiers, they were all flustered and exasperated. Soon, they spontaneously entered the palace to report this matter to the emperor. At the entrance of the palace, these people were all talking at once. What a Lu Xingji! He has just arrived in the Western Wasteland Prefecture, and he has already made such a big scene. He is really daring. That's why people say that he is young and frivolous. His Majesty was kind enough to give him the title of prince, but he really thinks too highly of himself. I was wondering why he agreed to leave the imperial capital so easily. It turns out that he already had a plan. However, he is still too naive. He wants to turn the Western Wasteland Prefecture into a state within a state. This is a big taboo for His Majesty. That's right. I think Lu Xingji will not be the king of the Western Wasteland for long. Don't call him Lu Xingji. He has already changed his name to Lung Shiqi. The king of the Western Wasteland, one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards, is also a person with a reputation. It is too casual to change his name just like that. I think there is something fishy about this. The heavenly origin stage expert of the Six Directions spiritual region has appeared. This means that the Lung Shiqi must be related to the Six Directions spiritual region. Don't forget, the Six Directions spiritual sovereign once brought people into the imperial palace. Perhaps the Lung Shiqi is their spy. Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi. Why does this name sound a little familiar? That's right. Isn't there a Lung Shiqi on the Flying Dragon leaderboard? Is it a coincidence, or are they the same person? Just as everyone was feeling indignant, the palace doors opened. Mo Xianghua and two imperial family elders walked over. The three of them were the 3 Yuan pavilion created by the soul clone. They held great authority. As soon as the three of them appeared, the others immediately shut their mouths. Mo Linhui said with a troubled expression, "I know why you're here. The information has already been sent to me. Regardless of whether it's Lu Xingji or Lung Shiqi, the implications of this matter are too great. His Majesty has to step in." "Then let's go and meet the Emperor," one of the officials said matter-of-factly. However, Mo Linhui sighed slightly. His Majesty has already gone into seclusion. He will not come out for the time being. Hearing this, all the officials were dumbfounded. His Majesty went into seclusion. What the hell was going on? They had heard of emperors being extravagant and indulging in debauchery. They had heard of emperors who did not do proper work. They had heard of emperors who loved beauties more than their country. However, they had never heard of an emperor going into seclusion. Actually, His Majesty has already gone into seclusion a few days ago. He has also discussed this matter with the 3 Yuan pavilion. Mo Linhui explained, His Majesty has indeed gone into seclusion, because he has something important to deal with. This matter concerns the lifeline of the Thunderfire dynasty. The soul clone had indeed gone into seclusion. This way, he could delay the Lung Shiqi's actions in the Western Wilderness Prefecture. As time passed, it would naturally be easier to deal with. The reason he could convince the 3 Yuan pavilion was very simple. His final goal for going into seclusion this time was to set up restrictions on the Thunderfire Pearl again. Previously, when Six Direction Spirit Sovereign attacked the palace, the Thunderfire dynasty had realized the drawbacks of the Thunderfire Pearl. Before the soul clone ascended to the throne, the shoddy ruler had instructed him to improve the restrictions on the Thunderfire Pearl as soon as possible. Ever since the soul clone ascended to the throne, he had been preparing for this matter. However, the restrictions on the Thunderfire Pearl itself were already very difficult to come into contact with. To set up the restrictions again required a lot of manpower and resources. Since the ascension to the throne, many formation masters had secretly gathered in the imperial capital. With Zhong Zhenliang and Lan Ruo in the Imperial Hall of Worship as the leaders, they had been preparing in full swing. Until a few days ago, they had finally completed all the preparations and could begin. Only then did the soul clone decide to go into seclusion. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. No, it should be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. At this moment, the soul clone walked into the dragon vein. The place to remove and set up restrictions was here. The Thunderfire Pearl was too important to the Thunderfire dynasty. They had to be careful. However, no one knew that the soul clone had more than 1 Thunderfire Pearl. Instead, there were 2. Chapter 8:16. A few months later, Lung Shiqi's West Desolation King's mansion was finally completed. The time was mainly spent on setting up the array and building some secret rooms. He also did 2 things during this time. The first was to reorganize the various powers in the West Desolation province. Although they agreed last time at the king's mansion, they might not be so convinced in their hearts. So Lung Shiqi sent out a few Unity of Heaven Realm experts to govern the East, West, South and North counties. At first, some people were still waiting for the reaction from the imperial capital. They felt that Lung Shiqi's good days would not last long. After more than a month, there was still no movement from the imperial capital. Only then did they start to panic and have no choice but to submit. The other thing was that Lung Shiqi used this time to sort out his own spirit cultivation Tao. He had settled in the Unity of Heaven realm for a period of time. It was time to prepare for breaking through to the Sky Origin realm. He vaguely had some clues, but he still needed to slowly explore. Right now, there were more important things to do. He had to make a trip to Zhulu country. Leng Shiqi had started to set up a few years ago. Now it was time to reel in the net. Now he did not need to worry about the affairs of the king's mansion. After arranging everything, he announced that he was in seclusion and no one was to disturb him. As for himself, he quietly crossed the border and entered Zhulu country. In recent years, the biggest change in Zhulu country was the appearance of a special power, Buddhism. This power was clearly very loose. Many people did not need to have any talent to join. There was no lack of experts in the four realms of Heaven realm. Those Buddhist disciples were also dressed very strangely. They all had big bald heads and mouthed Amitabha Buddha. They were very recognizable. At first, no one cared about this Buddhist sect. However, the Buddhist sect developed at an unimaginable speed. When people noticed it, they suddenly realized that the Buddhist sect's power was about to spread throughout the entire Zhulu country. In almost any city or town, you could see Buddhist disciples. They were still constantly preaching Buddhism. Those uneducated, ordinary people could easily become believers. So even though many people were not Buddhist disciples, they were believers of Buddhism. Some spirit cultivation sects gradually realized that something was wrong. Because many talented youths also joined Buddhism, these spirit cultivation sects could not bear it anymore. Thus, all over Zhulu country, there were cases of spirit cultivator sects joining forces to suppress the Buddhist sects. As a result, some Buddhist sect disciples even died. However, they didn't know that they had attracted a terrifying existence, Master Tuding. Zhulu country was not big. After that incident, Master Tudang went to visit them one by one. He did not go to reason with them, but instead left behind a 3,000-foot-long, bottomless swastika Buddhist seal in front of every spirit cultivator sect. According to the memories of those who had witnessed the scene at that time, there was only the light of Buddha in the whole world at that time. They did not feel any discomfort when they were bathed in the light of Buddha. On the contrary, they felt quite comfortable. However, when the Buddhist light dissipated, they saw the terrifying swastika. There were plenty of unity of Heaven realm experts in Zhu Road Nation. They believed that even if they were 10 times stronger, they wouldn't be able to create such a big scene. Master Tuding must be at Sky Origin stage. When the news got out, all the sects in the Zhulu country were shocked. This Buddhist sect that came out of nowhere actually had a Sky Origin stage cultivator. Those sects that had killed Buddhist disciples were all trembling in fear. Some sealed their mountains and did not come out. Some went to apologize. After this incident, no one dared to provoke the Buddhist sect anymore. They developed even faster. At this moment, the disguised Leng Shiqi was sitting in a restaurant in a small town, inquiring about the Buddhist sect. He was not sure if Tuding had broken through to Sky Origin stage, but he was sure that Master Tudang's strength was definitely above Sky Origin stage. With this trump card in hand, Leng Shiqi had a bit more confidence in the matter of Zhulu country. However, he did not come to this town to find Tuding, but to find another person, Princess Ka Luo. Princess Ka Luo had established a force called 10,000 Gu Cave not far away. It had grown quite well in the past 2 years, and was already a second-rate sect. He had wanted to find them directly, but unexpectedly, 10,000 Gu Cave had a conflict with another sect, Heavenly Silkworm Palace. These two forces both cultivated Gu techniques, and Zhulu country was so small, there were not many places suitable for cultivating Gu worms. The two sides had already had several conflicts over some resources. In the end, they decided to have a fight in the town, and the loser would have to leave 100 miles away. Because of this, many people came to the town to watch the show. The fight was 3 days later, and the experts of 10,000 Gu Cave had already arrived in the town. Unfortunately, they did not see Princess Ka Luo. Leng Shiqi did not bother to look for her carefully. As long as he waited for a day or two, she would naturally appear. At night, Leng Shiqi sat quietly in a room of an inn. He opened his supercilious eyes and observed everything in the town. Soon he found Princess Ka Luo's spiritual aura. To Leng Shiqi's surprise, Princess Ka Luo's cultivation was at Spirit Gang Realm level 4. This cultivation speed was almost the same as Yushu and Mengming. It seems that Gu techniques are really suitable for her. I underestimated her talent before. Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Suddenly he seemed to think of something which made his expression change. A trace of interest flashed in his eyes, and then he disappeared from the room like a ghost. On the other side, Princess Ka Luo, who was now known as Lady Gu, quietly walked into the town with a person. They carefully turned left and right, and came to a remote small house. In front of the house, the person behind her knocked on the door rhythmically, and then a sneaky person led them in. After closing the door, the person smiled and said, "Lady Gu is willing to give me face, what an honor. Brother Warren, you are an elder of Celestial Silkworm Palace. It should be my honor that you are willing to see me," Princess Ka Luo said with a fake smile. Hee, Lady Gu is really good with words. I can't come out for too long, so let's keep it short. This is the information on the participants of our Heavenly Silkworm Hall, including their cultivation methods, spirit techniques, and some of their weaknesses. It turned out that Warren was actually betraying his own sect here. Princess Ka Luo was delighted. As long as she had this information, she would definitely win this fight. She reached out to take the information, but a voice sounded. "Princess Ka Luo, I don't think you need to use this method." "Who is it?" Princess Ka Luo was shocked, but she suddenly found that the two people beside her were motionless like statues. When she looked again, there was no trace of life in their eyes. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.